All right, council, we're going to reconvene in open session. So there is a motion that council of the Township of Adjala-Tosorontio reconvene in open session at 6:34 p.m. and that the presentation entitled Meeting Procedures and Council Relation Midterm Review be made publicly available. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Borzos. And before I call the question, I just wanted to acknowledge that council did meet in camera for council meeting procedures and relations, staff relations. The presentation was well received by council, and that information will be available on the post-meeting agenda as part of this resolution. All in favor? And that is carried. All right, so we're on to the open session part of the meeting then. Okay, so additions. Are there any additions to the agenda this evening from council? Seeing none. Adoption of the agenda. Do I have a mover to adopt? Councillor Cox. Second by Councillor O'Leary. That the agenda for the regular council meeting held on Wednesday, February 12th, 2025 be adopted as presented. Any questions on the agenda? And all those in favor? That is carried. Item 6 is disclosure of interests. Are there any disclosures from council? Okay, seeing none. If you do find yourself in that situation at a later time, please declare. Item 7 is the adoption of the minutes. Can I get a mover to adopt the minutes? I have Councillor Cox, seconded by Deputy Mayor Laux. That the minutes of the regular council meeting held on Tuesday, January 14th, 2025 be adopted as presented. Any questions on the minutes? And all those in favor? That is carried. All right, so we're on to item 8, presentations. We have one presentation this evening. So it's Ryan Durrell, and he's a CIO, principal broker and principal of risk insurance management services. And we have Leland Sibick, the treasurer of the county of Simcoe, joining us. Welcome. So we've got Ryan online, and Leland, thank you very much for coming in person. So who would like to start? Okay, Ryan, the floor is yours. So we'll get the slide deck up here momentarily for you, and you can run through your presentation.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Am I muted, or can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. My screen says I'm muted, but I'm not, so that's good. First of all, thank you very much, Your Worship and Council, for having me. Apologies, I'm not there in person. I would very much have preferred to be there in person, but based on the roads where I'm living now, it was the right call from a safety perspective. So we'll try and do our best to do this in an engaging way online. So once we get the slides going.
Just give us one moment here. We'll get that up for you.
No problem at all. Terrific. Thanks very much. So we'll jump right in. Next slide, please. Back one, please. Spoiler alert. That's slide 3. Okay, perfect. So in response to insurance premium uncertainty over the last few years, the Simcoe County and the participating municipalities explored alternatives to the current insurance model in order to identify opportunities for improvements in costs and cost stability. Due diligence was undertaken to determine if there was feasibility for an alternative, and that was completed, and a strong business case was definitely there for that. And so now implementation is underway and commitment is required from the participants. Next slide. After the feasibility study, the proposed solution was to implement an insurance pool. It won't be the first one. There are two existing operational insurance pools in Ontario. The first one is the Waterloo Region Municipalities Insurance Pool, which was established in 1998, and the Durham Municipal Insurance Pool followed in 2000. And now 25 years later, we're hoping to be starting the Simcoe Municipalities Insurance Pool. And so first thing I want to note is that it has been a quarter century. So what took so long, you might be asking? The reality is that in between 2000 and 2025, for a long period of that, there was a soft insurance market where insurance premiums were readily decreasing year over year, and insurance limits and coverages were increasingly available. And it really wasn't until about 2018, 2019 that the market turned hard and we started to get those large premium increases. And it's really in those times that we have the incentive to look at alternatives. But that said, both of those pools have been operating since their inception, all the way through that time, delivering value to their membership. So pools work just as well in the soft and hard markets. It's just in the hard insurance markets is when we really have that incentive to start looking at alternatives. Next slide. So why should we start an insurance pool? Next slide. Fundamentally, because insurance is actually expensive, and this is something we know. It doesn't come at your cost, and insurance companies are not charitable organizations. So after conducting the feasibility study and looking at all the losses and premiums of the group, projecting forward to 2025, the total premium spend by the 18 municipalities, including the county, was about $20.6 million. That's an estimated figure, but weren't far off from that. $20.6 million of insurance premiums. And out of that, the expected losses, the average amount expected to be spent by the insurers on claims, was only 34%, or 30 cents on the dollar. So what's happening with the other 66 cents on the dollar? 31%, we believe, was earmarked for profit and for risk margin. So the insurers are taking on potentially some downside risk. So their profit and risk margin is about 31 cents. And the other 35 cents is made up of operating expenses for the insurers. They're large companies. They have marketing budgets, et cetera, large buildings, et cetera. And then also broker compensation. Insurance brokers are a meaningful percentage of the insurance premium, and then premium tax, which is about 4%, 3.5% to 4%. So that's where your premium dollars are going now. So we want to change the way in which we insure the municipalities. Next slide. And part of that is about this insurance pool concept, which is fundamentally self-insurance. So we're not going to buy insurance, so we're going to do it ourselves. And a great analogy here is that self-insurance is like making your own meals at home, where buying insurance is like dining out at restaurants. So the end result is the same. It's just a little bit different process to get there. So next slide. So why might we go about buying insurance? And first and foremost, I think convenience. It's just like when you go to the restaurant, you pull out the menu, the price is right there in front of you. And you know what the cost is going to be. And with insurance, you know what the premium is going to be up front for the year. It gives you annual cost certainty. You may not know what's going to happen next year, but at least for the current year, you know exactly what the cost is going to be. Next slide. Specialty is another reason why we buy insurance. We use insurance to transfer the risks that we can't or don't want to accept. And in some cases, that's just very, very large losses. So losses that would destabilize our operations or the municipality's finances. So very large losses would be one thing, but other things would be specialty insurance items, like, for example, cyber insurance, where they come with a lot of services that are specialized. So we buy insurance also to get access to specialty. Next slide. And last but not least, in this set of analogy slides, service is another one. Especially for a smaller municipality, we get a lot of service embedded in our insurance premium. Claims and risk management are key amongst those. And so it's a one purchase. So just like at the restaurant, somebody clears away the dishes and gets all the ingredients and so on. With insurance, it's sort of a one-stop shop. Next slide. So why should we buy less insurance? And I think just to put a sharp point on it, cost. Pun intended, insurance comes at a premium, as we mentioned before. Not every dollar you spend on insurance comes back to you in the way of claims. So insurance does come at a premium. Next slide. And the other reason why is because as we build out our in-house capabilities and we build out things that we can do for ourselves, that's going to be a more cost-effective way to deliver those services. So risk management capacity, as that grows, and claims handling, for example, it'll become beneficial to do those things for ourselves. So just like I really like making spaghetti at home. I'm quite good at it. I wouldn't go and spend money at the restaurant for that. So as you build out your ability to do certain things, you stop wanting to spend extra money for that elsewhere. Next slide. So how do we go about buying less insurance? I mean, one of the key things that we really advocate for across the board is to reduce or avoid losses, so you don't really need the insurance with risk management. But practically speaking, one of the quickest way to reduce the amount of insurance we buy is to increase our deductibles or our self-insured retentions. And really, that's what we're proposing we do. But we're going to use pooling to reduce the volatility that would arise out of the increased retention. So if as a single municipality, Adjala-Tosorontio, were to take on a $500,000 deductible, that could be quite destabilizing. So we're going to use pooling to reduce that volatility by sharing that risk, just the same way insurers do across the broader group. And we're also going to use that the resources of this shared pool, to create central resources and coordinate and deliver claims and risk management. So get those services in a do-it-yourself way. Next slide. So what about your insurance coverage? We're not advocating not purchasing insurance. We're just looking at changing the way it's purchased. And so currently the 18 municipalities, including the county, all have individual insurance policies. They're all placed separately. And the big change here is that we're going to take those smaller insurance policies and we're going to buy one very large policy for the entire group. And that large policy will have the highest limits necessary for the largest municipalities. And then one of the nice things, especially for the smaller municipalities, they'll have access to larger limits than you would otherwise with no additional costs. So fundamentally, for the insurance policies that are going to be undertaken by the pool, coverage will be, broadly speaking, the same or better than what you have now, subject to some nuances from carrier to carrier as we figure out who's going to be that excess insurer. Next slide. So what does this pool structure look like? And this is a great way to visualize it. At the bottom of this tower of what we call limits is the municipality deductible. And municipalities currently have a deductible with their insurers, and we're not advocating to change that. We think deductibles are a great way to make sure that pool participants will continue to be invested in risk management and great risk management activities by bearing some of the cost of the insurance structure. But above that municipal deductible will be the pool layer, essentially the portion of the claims that will be pooled and shared across the group. And that will go all the way up to 500,000 inclusive of that deductible. So for example, if the deductible is 10,000, the pool will cover up to 490,000. And then above that 500,000, like I said, we're still going to access the insurance market. They have a very important part to play in this. And so insurance will be providing the excess limits above that 500,000. So on the next slide, we're going to take a look at the deductibles. And this is a really important point. What this slide is representing is that one of the things we're going to do is standardize the deductibles for the municipalities of similar size. And that's to make sure that everybody is using the pool in the same way, the pooled resources. But for any municipality who's being asked to change their deductible, through the actuarial work that was done, as part of this project, we've allocated savings for situations where deductibles are increasing, for example, so that all of the savings that we present is already adjusted for the fact that deductibles might be slightly different between the status quo and the pool structure. So here you can see that at the larger end of the municipalities, they might have a $100,000 deductible, and then for any one claim at the maximum, the pool would only cover $400,000. And at the smaller end, a municipality might have a $10,000 deductible, and the pool would cover up to $490,000. So smaller municipalities will use the pool more for large losses than larger municipalities who are going to continue to retain a deductible similar to what they have now. Next slide. So going back to the stack chart, and just to give you a for instance of how this all works, let's say we do have a very, very large loss. And I think that's one of the key concerns is that, okay, are we taking on new risk, and is this going to destabilize our costs going forward? And the short answer is no. If we had a $15 million loss, for example, the first thing that's going to happen is the municipality is going to pay their deductible. And a smaller municipality would pay $10,000 of that, and a large municipality or the county, for example, would pay $100,000. Then the pool will kick in between $490,000 and $400,000, depending on which deductible applied. So really, as a group, we're only taking on $500,000 of loss. And above that, the insurer, who we're going to continue to engage, will pick up, as they do now, and what they're really good at is picking up that $14.5 million loss. So that won't be borne by the pool directly. That will continue to be insured in the insurance market. And so really the pool is about retaining predictable losses and having consistent results. And we continue to use insurers for that specialty that they provide, the large unpredictable losses. Next slide. So what does this look like from a premium perspective? The gray bar here is the $20.6 million projected 2025 premiums on a status quo basis, what's being done now. And then at the far left, there's the blue section. That's the relative amount of deductible that the municipalities are taking on right now, which is about $1.759 million. So largely, we're outsourcing our risk to insurers now. Next slide. And what we're proposing we do, again, is to continue to buy insurance, and that's the green bar there. We're going to continue to buy $7.7 million, give or take, of excess insurance for those losses that are above 500,000. And for the losses that are below 500,000, we're going to have a pool retention. So we're going to have a levy, and those dollars are going to go in to pay for the costs of the claims under 500,000. And then the blue area there on the left is the new municipal deductibles. So some of the municipalities are going to see increased deductibles, but again, savings have already been allocated. But by doing this restructuring, we have an opportunity to save up to 19.2% right out of the gate. And I'll circle back to that in a moment. The next slide, please. So before you think, oh boy, this is going to get much more complicated than what we used to have, the reality is that the municipalities in the pool will really experience something very similar to what they have now. It'll be a single price. It'll be a levy, in quotes there, in lieu of an insurance premium, because the pool is going to purchase insurance on behalf of the pool participants. But really, it would be a single bill, very similar to the way insurance operates for the municipalities now. So that's showing the $16.1 million that are needed if we realize the full 19.2% savings. Next slide. Do want to give you an X-ray vision into the pool and how that 16.092 million is made up. The actuaries have identified that the losses retained by the pool, so the expected losses that the pool is going to retain, are $4.5 million. They've also identified that as a pool, we should have a risk margin, an amount to make sure that, because we don't want to just cover the average claims, we want to have some buffer. So the $815,000 presented here in yellow, that's the amount the actuaries have earmarked to say, if we have this extra amount of money, then we're good 4 times out of 5. Really what that is. The next line, the blue operating expenses line, we're budgeting $1.575 million for operating expenses. If you recall earlier in the presentation, I mentioned we're going to build out central resources for Simcoe County and the municipalities in the pool. And those resources can be funded out of this operating expenses. So that's included in the levy. And that's going to be for staff at the pool, as well as resources like actuarial auditing, finance, HR, etc. Those costs are all baked into that. Then, as you saw earlier, $7.7 million is our budget for excess insurance premium for those losses above 500,000. And at the far right, this is an important number. This is what the actuaries are recommending for a startup, just a startup surplus contribution, to make sure that we had ample surplus to ensure that we didn't have any shortfalls out of the gate. But that $1.5 million is only required for the startup period. And then once we sort of hit our stride and we have sufficient surplus, we can do away with that. And I'll show you how that ends up working out in a couple slides time. Next slide. So you're thinking, wow, 20% off in 1 year as a recommended savings. That's huge. How are we generating that? Fundamentally, what we're doing is we're reducing the amount of for-profit insurance, and we're establishing a pool to manage a meaningful portion of our losses on a not-for-profit basis. So essentially, we're just doing the operational side of it on a more streamlined basis. Another thing we're doing is we're consolidating the insurance placement services to reduce the insurance brokerage costs. Currently, there's 18 individual placements going every year, and there's brokers involved, and that comes at an additional cost, probably something in the order of 15% of the 20.6. So there's about $3 million. So that's one area where we can definitively reduce the overall costs to the pool by reducing the amount of insurance we purchase. And last but not least, and this is not something really in the numbers, but there's going to be opportunities for additional savings as we go along. We build out those in-house resources. So, for example, the Waterloo Region Pool, who came and talked to the county council, they pointed out that they have in-house adjusting services that operate at a lower cost than regular market resources, and that's keeping costs on claims lower. That's not something contemplated here, but it's an opportunity for the municipalities to achieve even more savings than what's outlined here. Next slide. So planning for stability is really crucial. We want to make sure this is a success. So I mentioned earlier that we had up to 19.2% savings versus status quo. What's being recommended after talking with the technical working group, which is made up of a group of your peers, and has been a great resource for the pool setup and implementation process. So what we're recommending is that the municipalities elect to provide a 10% direct savings over status quo and defer the remaining 9.2% savings in favor of building surplus even faster. And what this does is provide a belt and suspenders startup surplus for enhanced stability, simply just putting a little bit more guarantee that this is going to work. A second wave of savings and even a third wave of savings in years 3 and beyond. So savings are going to continue to grow as we stay in the pool. And it also allows for smoother year-over-year budgeting. We can look out 2 or 3 years with confidence because we have sufficient surplus to offset any change in costs in a shorter term. Next slide. So how does this planning for stability stack up? Again, pun intended, can't help myself. As you recall, we had an actuarial risk margin of $815,000 in the overall levy, and the actuaries were recommending $1.5 million of surplus contribution. So the deferred savings of 9.2 adds another $2.06 million to that. So our buffer, the extra money we're going to have on hand to pay claims in case they are worse than expected, is $4.375 million. And that buffer is almost equal to the amount of claims we actually expect to pay, for which we're already budgeted for. So this gives us tremendous security as we roll into this new venture. Next slide. It's only 3 more slides, so if you're really enjoying the presentation and don't want it to be over, I just thought I'd give you the heads up that it's coming to a close pretty soon. On the far left-hand side is the status quo. That's that $20.6 million we've been talking about all the way along. So just And all this is on the same dollar basis so that it looks apples to apples. But as it sits now, looking at 2025 projections, the far left gray bar is where you're sitting now. So in years 1 and 2 of the pool, we're going to immediately achieve a 10% savings over what was paid previously. And again, we're showing that 9.2 savings is being deferred to a later date. In doing that belt and suspenders approach, already by year 3, we have more than enough surplus according to the actuaries on a projected basis. And so right away in year 3, we can take off the $1.5 million surplus, setup surplus. And so our savings is going to grow from 10% compared to status quo to 16.7% over status quo. And that'll run like that for maybe 1 or 2 years. And at some point around year 5 or 6 or beyond, we'll realize there's absolutely no need to keep deferring the 9.2, and our savings will grow to a full 25.9% savings over status quo. So there's tremendous savings, and it's going to continue to be rolled out to the municipalities in the pool in a thoughtful way, with an eye to stability and continued benefit to the municipalities in the future. Next slide. Again, just 2 more slides, second last slide. Planned launch date is June 1st, 2025. The move to June 1st is really about streamlining administration. It's a great time to conduct a renewal. The insurers often renew their reinsurance capacity on Jan 1, and that can make it challenging to get renewal terms in a timely fashion if you're looking at a January 1st renewal. And June 1st is a good off-cycle time. It also makes it easier for staff who then aren't dealing with budgeting and insurance renewals at the same time. And what I think you'll be pleased to know is the Simcoe municipalities have various insurance renewal dates around the calendar year, but June 1st is equally inconvenient for everybody. So nobody has a June 1st date. So it's a date chosen to be equally inconvenient for all and not favoring any municipality. I mean, it's not exactly why we chose it, but it's a nice side effect. And the current policies do allow for cancellation midterm, so you're allowed to cancel. In some cases, there's some fairly minor penalties to canceling earlier, but the cost savings in the pool should offset any of those cancellation penalties. And by month 7 or so of the pool, you'll be into the full savings experience. So it will be quickly a thing of the past. So joining the pool will require signing on to something called the subscribers agreement. That's the agreement that creates the association that is the pool. That agreement lays out a 5-year commitment to the pool out of the gate. And it's really important that we have this 5-year commitment to ensure stability for the pool. It also provides us the negotiating power of the excess insurers. It says these municipalities are committed to the structure, so get on board or get left behind. And so that's pretty important. The other thing the 5-year commitment does is allow the municipalities who are participating to really experience the full breadth of savings available from this process, as I mentioned earlier. The agreement will create an advisory board, which will be responsible for governing the pool. It will be made up of 1 seat per municipality on the board with 1 vote each, regardless of size. So the smallest municipality and the largest municipality will have the same voice on the advisory board. The advisory board will be responsible for, amongst other things, setting the pool levies annually, and will have input from the actuary on what's appropriate for that. A pool manager will be responsible for the day-to-day operations. So that's a new role at the pool. So it doesn't technically, they might be an employee of one of the pool members, but they will actually be governed by the advisory board, not a single municipality. That agreement also lays out the exit and entry conditions, which I think are important. And we'll talk about those on the next and final slide. So brace yourselves, it's coming to an abrupt end after this slide. One of the things that was really important early on when we started doing these presentations, that not all municipalities were required for launch, and that was more important earlier on in the process. This is the 17th of 18 presentations, and I'm pleased to say that we now have enough committed support that the pool is going to going to move forward. And we did conclude that even with 50% participation, we could deliver that 10% savings we were proposing. But entry after startup, so municipalities that ultimately choose not to join at startup, if you join after startup, it could add costs, and those costs, in order to track that separate municipality with a different timeline, and those costs would be borne by that individual municipality. Also, as we mentioned, we're going to be accumulating surplus at a significant rate, and any municipality looking to join later will have to match the surplus of the other members. So that might be perceived as an immediate cost. So getting in early and working with the municipalities collectively will allow you to build that surplus organically with all the groups without having that perceived increase. Members may not meet the criteria for joining down the road. So one of the first things the advisory board needs to do is set out what the criteria are for any potential future members. And at this point, all the members who've been asked to join have been vetted through that feasibility study process and the implementation process. So everybody who's being asked to join is a Simcoe County municipality. So they've all been vetted, but down the road, if a municipality wants to join, there will be criteria to make sure that they're a risk that's consistent with the rest of the group, and they might not meet that. And one of the other things the municipal pool in Waterloo talked about at the county council was that they had been approached by other municipalities, and their advisory board had elected not to add new members. So it could be just that the advisory board would happy with how things are running and doesn't want to let new members in. So I think the great analogy is the train's leaving the station. You don't know when the next stop is going to be, so it's a great time to get on the train while it's setting off. Last point to be made, pool staff will be hired in, as mentioned. That's accounted for in the levies and budgeted for. Pool staff will be providing and coordinating those services that municipalities are accustomed to getting from their insurer. So risk management services, claims handling, including appointment of adjusters and defense counsel, will be managed and coordinated by pool staff. So we're not downloading new responsibilities on municipal staff outside of potentially participating on the advisory board. They'll also be responsible for organizing the meetings of that board and materials and coordinating things like inspections and other services. So I think that's in a nutshell. I know it's a lot, but that's the end of the presentation. This is just a sort of an infographic to point out Adjala-Tosorontio's specific savings, and so we're projecting a savings adjusting for the deductible change of $625,000 over 5 years. And the second piece is the equity in the pool. So as mentioned, that surplus is building, but the surplus is being allocated to the subscribers, and that equity grows, and that total within the pool would be $517,000. While staying in the pool, the value that the municipality gets from that equity is stability, but potentially also new services and new insurance coverages. Case in point, the Waterloo Pool had started a self-insured cyber insurance program with their surplus. But if at the end of 5 years it's decided to exit the pool, that equity does ultimately get returned to the municipality. So it really is, the municipality's equity sitting at the pool, being used to the benefit of the municipality. So, and otherwise, the rest are just pretty pictures of the same data.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Durrell. I appreciate the presentation there. Mr. Civic, would you like to provide any additional comments? Okay, so we will entertain some questions though. So if there are some questions from council through to the presenter or to Leland, we can facilitate that. So I've got Deputy Mayor Locks and then Councillor Meadows.
Thank you through the chair to Mr. Durrell. So I believe this insurance pool does not cover everything that is needed for the municipality. Is that correct?
It's not contemplating covering cyber insurance and environmental coverage. Those are the specific ones. There are some, for example, user group programs that are already being discussed at the technical working group level about being coordinated through the pool. And the other thing the municipalities have more or less indicated to us is that a group purchase program for those additional coverages would be something worth exploring, which could present additional savings outside of what's being presented here. But in terms of retaining risk, there was not enough actuarial data to recommend doing that. So those things may continue to be procured the way you do now. That's not generating necessarily an additional cost to what you're doing now, but it's not contemplated to be inside the pool.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Meadows.
Through the chair. With regards to, I know this might be a silly question, but we're a small municipality. Are we going to be paying like the same premiums as somebody like Springwater or whoever? Is that in the formula, or is there a certain formula you're going to be using for certain municipalities?
The way the pool is being designed to start up is to use your expiring insurance premiums as a guide for the levies. So we're taking essentially what your 2024 premiums are and providing a 10% discount over that to start out. The reality is that we're starting fresh and we need to start collecting claims data, et cetera. But barring any, and we've looked at the data, the municipalities largely have the same risk profile. So barring any changes, really we have allocated or created a levy starting point based on your current premium, and it will continue to be uniquely your levy, because it'll be driven in part, at least, by your municipality's experience. But it will also benefit from the stabilizing features of having shared risk, just the way insurance works now. So this might be like slightly long-winded. We're starting off using your insurance premium, so we're not just saying this municipality needs to pay the same as the one next door. So you're starting off with your experience guiding us on levies, and it will continue to be that way down the road. But the advisory board, and again, you'll have a seat at the table with the same voice as any other. The advisory board is responsible for guidance around setting up how levies should be allocated, how those premiums should be allocated to the municipalities, and the actuaries will be guiding them to sort of say, this is the experience of this municipality, and this is the levy that makes sense for them based on the experience they have.
Okay, supplemental. With regards to this advisory board, is it going to be a paid seat position that's going to be like each municipality has on this board?
Each municipality will appoint a staff member. I believe the guidance is somebody with insurance or finance experience to sit on the board. So it won't be a paid seat, I don't believe, but I'm not sure what the advisory board will choose to do about that once created.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Meadows. Any other questions from council? All right, Mr. Durrell, I have a couple here, and just for clarification purposes. And again, I sat through the presentation at the county as well, and I appreciate the information. So, so what I'm looking at in that last slide in your presentation indicated 2025, the pool for the Township of Adjala-Tosorontio would be 547,000 and change. And so I'm assuming that is what's being suggested that would be our contribution to the pool for the first year. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Second question I have is just with regards to additional insurance. You'd indicated the pool will be also dealing with insurance above and beyond. So, for example, and I'll just kind of think through this here for a second. We're still going to, as a municipality, purchase cybersecurity insurance and other insurance that we would require. But if I understand correctly, the pool then would actually purchase additional liability insurance up to the millions, and not necessarily just up to the 500,000, because the pool is going to accommodate up to 500,000, but the pool is also going to purchase insurance for all the pool parties. That's the plan, isn't it?
It's a very unfortunate name, which ends up just making me smile at least once or twice a day. So,
so that would be, so the pool would actually purchase that, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, so if you look at two specific lines of coverage, for an example, the pool is intending to cover municipal liability. So that's one of the policies that you would hold now. If, you know, in the context of that particular policy, the pool will be responsible for the deductible of up to 500,000 and be purchasing the insurance up to, say, for example, 25 or $50 million for that coverage line, which would likely be more than you necessarily buy now, but it won't come at any additional cost to you to have access to it, because that's what the pool participants, broadly speaking, will need. Cyber, for example, will be separate, and you can continue to choose to purchase it through the broker you use now or a new broker or whatever the case is. But we've been asked by the technical working group to consider looking at doing a cyber purchasing program, which would be optional for municipalities to participate in, to streamline the procurement of that if desired. Again, it wasn't part of the initial pooling project, so it's not, and it won't be risk retained because cyber insurance is quite volatile and quite new. So we don't have enough data to be confident that that's a great idea out of the gate. So that's one that will continue to be insured.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question, if, and going back just to the, I'll call it the premium that we'd be putting into the pool originally, if we don't get all 18 parties, and I'm assuming that would be adjusted, because from the slide deck, I'm assuming we have to invest $16 million into the pool initially. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's actually not really an investment. It's just a replacement for the premium you'd pay now. So that's $16.1 million, and it is a separate investment. That's really just the equivalent of the premium you're paying now. So if you look at the last slide, the 500,000, that's your part of the $16.1 million. So there's no additional new costs. It's just we're doing it all within a savings at a lower cost than what you're spending now on insurance. We're able to deliver the same services at a lower cost. But even if we don't get all municipalities, we'll still be able, we're at the point now, we'll still be able to provide that number. It won't need to be adjusted because the 10% savings is still entirely feasible.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Borzos, question?
Through the chair, thank you. Mr. Durrell, just something came to me in thinking, what if there's multiple claims and let's say there's $59 million worth of claims in the single calendar year, which is above and beyond what our insurability is or was.
Right.
How do we handle that in that case? So who gets paid and who doesn't?
Great question. So there's two scenarios to look at. The first one is a single claim that was $60 million and we only had 50 million of limits. Those policies for example, auto and liability, they're not on an aggregate basis, they're on an occurrence basis. So if it was one single $60 million loss, right now that would be a problem for any one of the municipalities in the group as it sits now. That's just nobody, as far as I recall seeing, is purchasing $60 million of liability limits or auto liability limits. So that would be a problem now. It would be the same under this pool program because there simply isn't enough limits purchased. Certainly for your municipality, I believe you'd be more covered under the pool than you would be now. But having a $60 million claim does not use up the insurance and then not make it available because it's on an occurrence basis. So it refreshes, so the limits are available for each new occurrence. So that's part one. The other situation is if we had a lot, like a very large number of fairly small claims that were all within the pool retention, for example, in which case we've budgeted about $8.5 or $9 million to pay for claims within the pool layer. And if, for example, we had $12 million of losses, that could exhaust what we have, and we'd have to figure out how to make up for that. Two things worth noting. First of all, that scenario, statistically speaking, is near impossible. So the maximum loss experience that the actuaries were able to simulate, and they built a statistical model of the pool's financials and the claims from the group, the maximum they were able to do in 100,000 theoretical years was about $12 million. So getting way past 12 It's really hard to do. And we'll have $12 million in surplus by about year 2 or year 3. And the other advantage of this pool program is the kinds of claims that generate those kinds of losses take time to develop and emerge. So we'll have time to plan for and let our surplus catch up. So there's virtually no scenarios where we don't have sufficient money to pay for the claims within the pool layer, given the conservative approach that's already being taken. And as far as the single very large loss, as it sits now, you don't have enough coverage for that either, but it won't work any differently now than it does for you today, except that you have access to higher limits than you probably have.
Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Okay, any other questions through to the presenter? I will note that Mr. Anderchuk has a report on the agenda later, but we do have the consultant here to answer any questions that you might have more technical. So if you do have questions, this is the time to ask them. Councillor O'Leary.
Good Chair. My question is, you had mentioned in your presentation that Dufferin had it for 25 years or something. You named a couple of different areas that have
Durham and Waterloo.
So my question to you, sir, is did you, when you guys built your pool, did you use their fact bases to build on from their pool, or is yours totally independent?
So
Like, did you take what their, historically, what their costs were and what it cost them to operate? Did your actuaries base their information within your pool to make it more accurate?
for the Simcoe pool? So
Yes.
for this proposed pool, yes, we use the experience of the existing pools as guidance for sanity checking the results we were getting. But this pool is built entirely on the experience of the municipalities in Simcoe County, which is different in terms of the makeup of the municipalities. There's 18 potential participants versus 8 in Waterloo, for example. So it's a uniquely different structure, but absolutely we used our knowledge of the other pools to give us a sanity check on the results we were getting to make sure that it passed what we call, and this is a technical insurance term, the smell test.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I do want to make it clear that the costing and everything is built on your peers' experience and your experience. We didn't use their data to project out what the claims would be.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council? All right, I'm not seeing any. So Mr. Durrell, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm not sure if you're going to stick around or not in case we might need your expertise, but I do appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you very much for having me, Council and Mayor. I will be around in case you have questions later, so I'll hang out and listen in and be available.
Okay, thank you. All right, Council, there is a recommendation and that the presentation from Ryan Durrell, CIO, Principal Broker and Principal of Risk and Insurance Management Services, AXIMA, and Leland Siblick, Treasurer, County of Simcoe, regarding insurance pool be received. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? I have Councillor O'Leary, seconded by Councillor Borzos. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, so we're on to deputations. There are no deputations this evening. And then item 10 is public meetings. We have 2 public meetings tonight under the Planning Act. So the first is 10.1, proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 5289 Concession Road 3. So I now declare this portion of the council meeting to be a public meeting to deal with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 5289 Concession Road 3 at 7:23 p.m. Any person may attend the public meeting and or make written or verbal representation regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Please note all names and addresses will become part of the public record and will be included within the minutes of council. Are there any are there, sorry, I should go back. I don't believe we were doing a presentation this evening, but I believe Mr. McEwen, would you like to provide any comments before we proceed? Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So any person may attend the public meeting and/or make written or verbal representation regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Please note all names and addresses will become part of the public record and will be included within the minutes of council. Are there any persons that wish to provide comment regarding the proposed proposed zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate the severance of a 55-hectare, 1.3-acre surplus residential parcel as a result of proposed farm consolidation? Are there any persons in attendance who wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none. Madam Deputy Clerk, did we receive anything in writing?
To you, Your Worship, we received no comments written in writing.
Okay, thank you. And council, are there any comments or questions from council with regards to this application? Councillor Middles?
Yeah, I just have one question. So this particular property has 3 other buildings on it, is that correct?
Through your lordship to Councillor Meadows, yes, there are 3 other buildings. Those are agricultural buildings, barns.
Okay, with regards to this, would he be able to build another house on that particular property, or is it sterilized?
It will be sterilized. The remnant farm parcel will be sterilized, and for that, the zoning bylaw amendment is for. There would be no house can be built on that lot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions from council? All right, seeing none. So I now declare this public meeting closed at 7:25 p.m. And council, there's a recommendation. If I can get a mover for the recommendation, I have Councillor O'Leary, second by Councillor Meadows. That staff report PLA 2025-003 dated February 12, 2025 regarding 5289 Concession Road 3 proposed zoning bylaw amendment be received, and that staff be directed to consider all public and agency input as well as council comments and a further planning analysis to be set out in a planning report and recommendation to be brought to council at a future date. Any questions on the recommendation? All those in favor? That is carried. Our second public meeting is regarding 3911 Concession Road 3. So I now declare this portion of the council meeting to be a public meeting to deal with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 3911 Concession Road 3 at 7:26 p.m. I believe we do have Mr. Robinson with us this evening. So Mr. Robinson, if you'd like to provide a presentation for this bylaw amendment. Are you there, Mr. Robinson?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay,
Thank you, Worship. I've just,
Good to see you again, and I believe we have the slide deck, right? Or okay, so we'll
yeah,
get that
I'm
up.
not sure we even necessarily need the slide deck if I just observed your last public meeting, and this is a very similar application. It's a surplus farm dwelling severance. The lots, the purpose of the zoning amendment is to rezone both the retained and severed lot. So the larger parcel, which is the retained lot, would be zoned to prohibit a dwelling from being constructed on that parcel, whereas the severed lot is where the house is currently, and the proposed lot line effectively follows the limits of what we'll refer to as the landscaped area of that lot currently. So it's a pretty straightforward surplus farm dwelling severance application. I think that's all the comments I need to provide for now. It is consistent with the PPS policies related to surplus farm dwelling severances and does conform to both the county and the township OP. So if there's any questions, I can do my best to answer those. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. I appreciate that. So any person may attend the public meeting and/or make written or verbal representation regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Please note all names and addresses will become part of the public record and will be included within the minutes of council. Are there any persons that wish to provide comments regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? If so, please state your name and full mailing address and proceed with your comments. Are there any persons in the audience wishing to speak on this application? All right, seeing none. Madam Deputy Clerk, did we receive any comments in writing?
Through you, your worship, no comments were provided in writing. Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any questions from council with regards to this application? Seeing none. Mr. Robinson, you got off easy tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You as well.
So it is 7:28 p.m. I will declare the public meeting closed. Council, can I get a mover for the recommendation? By Councillor O'Leary, second by Councillor Cox. That staff report PLA 2025-003 dated February 12, 2025 regarding 5289 Concession Road 3, proposed zoning bylaw amendment be received, and that staff be directed to consider all public and agency input as well as council comments and a further planning analysis to be set out in a planning report and recommendation to be brought to council at a future date. Any further questions or comments? And all those in favor? That is carried. All right, so that takes us on to item 11, which is public comment. Members of the public may request their comments to be read by the clerk or present their comments orally. Only public comments related to an item on the agenda listed as staff reports, correspondence, or bylaws will be considered. Members of the public wishing to submit public comments can do so in writing to our clerk no later than 12 noon on the day of the meeting. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to provide their comments? And if so, please raise your hand and once called upon, proceed to the podium. Are there any persons in the audience wishing to speak this evening? Yes, Mr. Rowski. Can you just ensure the green light's on the mic, please? Thank you.
Oh, no, there, okay. Council members and township staff, my name's Kim Narowski and I'm commenting on behalf of my mother, June Narowski, at 2635 Concession Road 7. I have a number of questions and concerns with respect to agenda item 13.1, staff report IND 2025-005, Colgan Subdivision Services Review. And these are as follows. On the first section, capacity of municipal water system, why are township staff stating that there's insufficient water supply to sustain what was originally presented and signed off on with this development, pre-existing Colgan residences and new homes in the area? And this is a comment that was made by John Thompson in 2024 regarding the 4 new homes in Colgan, as well as comments in this report. A new water supply was developed for Colgan, which was capable of meeting existing demands plus additional growth. Based on previous information presented by Tribute Communities, EXP, and township staff, this was to cover the 640 home development, the retirement residence of 170 units, pre-existing Colgan residences, school, and new development in the area. What has happened to change the planning and implementation of this development to now there not being sufficient water? Why does this report indicate that the proposed seniors residence is not included in the calculation and availability of sufficient water supply when it was included previously? Why did the developer, township staff, and council approve water consumption based on 2.8 ppus when they full well knew that 4 and 5 bedroom homes were being built, also with the capability of basement apartments? Where's the logic in thinking that these homes would only have 2.8 ppus? It's my understanding and recollection from initial reports and studies presented to everyone, including residents, that the design criteria for the water system would provide sufficient water for all of the above mentioned. If this is now not true and cannot be met, what is the township and council going to do to address the shortcoming of water supply for the seniors residents and other proposed development? In the conclusion section of this report, with respect to water and wastewater rates, gathering additional consumption data over the next few billing cycles will be needed, and that paying attention to the annual water consumption summary report from OCWA will provide reassurance as to the viability of the water system. At the October 19th, 2024 Ward 1 and Ward 2 meeting that was hosted by Councillors Simpson and Meadows and attended by Mayor Anderson, Many Colgan Crossing residents were very upset by their first water wastewater bills, which were for many in excess of $1,000 for the quarter. Being summer and early fall, higher water usage for watering lawns to ensure newly laid soil or sod didn't die, along with other daily household water usages. Mayor Anderson stated that there were no concerns about water capacity in Colgan, and that if residents wanted, they could put in sand points in their private homes to pull water not connected to the sewage and wastewater systems. He went on to further comment that residents should limit sandpoint water use and minimize other water use. My questions on that is, what water source would these sandpoints be pulling from? What would be the impact to the underlying aquifer if this was done? And how would Aqua or the township monitor this kind of water pull and provide reassurance of the water system? Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Are there any other questions? Sorry, public comment from anyone in the audience? Ms. Budgell.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janet Budgell, 995-129 Mono Adjala Town Line. I'd like to comment on 13.1, establishment of water and wastewater rates. The staff report states that the operation and maintenance costs are recovered from a small number of water system users. That's a quote. From information provided by our previous CAO in April 2024, I was told that within the township, there are only 26% users of water and wastewater, and the remainder, 74%, are non-users, those of us who are using wells or septic systems. As Mayor Anderson previously commented, non-users are not billed for water and wastewater. While I appreciate the comment, at the March 2024 council meeting, the finance report indicated that water, wastewater costs are at least in part paid through tax-based borrowing. Why are the 74% of non-users through tax-based borrowing, at least in part, paying for these costs? A comment, Councillor Borso commented at the April 2024 meeting that everyone in the township should bear responsibility for water, wastewater shortfalls, whether they are water, wastewater servicing or not. That's a quote. And my question is why? If wells run out and new wells have to be dug or drilled, septic systems need maintenance or replacement, the township does not support or assist these non-users with any financial assistance. At a past council meeting, I actually presented a bill, you may or may not remember, for $60,000 for my problems. And I believe that the mayor passed it on to Ron O'Leary. And Ron, I never got a check. Okay? Okay, as long as you can catch up on that, okay? Second point, for the wastewater system, Schedule J2 notes that the sanitary treatment system must be commissioned prior to obtaining the balance of the permits. That's 35%. The commissioning of the plant was scheduled for March of 2024. As an interim solution, Tribute Communities has arranged to remove the waste from the site through trucks that are equipped to handle the waste, commencing August 2023. So question, we are now almost at March 2025, and the wastewater treatment facility is not completed or commissioned. Why not? Question two, as we are almost a year past the scheduled commission date for this plant, and the MECP has only approved hauling sewage waste overland as a temporary measure, how much longer is this going to take? On question three, the report indicates that until the sewage treatment facility was fully operational, the developer was to incur the full cost of waste removal, and that the residents of the Colgan Crossing would not be billed for this. I'm not sure if I'm understanding correctly, but from comments I have heard, it appears that these residents maybe are being billed for these costs. It's a question. Since it is unlikely that anyone will address this point during the item discussion, if this is true, why is there a double billing for waste removal, both the developer and the residents? And what is the township doing with these dollars? And how is it being captured or reported in the financial statement? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I do have another question on another item.
I'll allow it.
It's very short.
Okay.
Okay. I just discovered it today, and it's 14.5. This is dealing with, okay, I'll just write down what I just wrote. As a former employee for the Anishinaabe Nation, land acknowledgements may, will, and have led to the loss of lands presently owned by you and I through land claims. And I wonder, have you taken this situation into account?
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Are there any other persons in the audience wishing to provide comment? All right, seeing no others. Madam Deputy Clerk, did we receive any comments in writing?
Through you, Your Worship, no public comments were provided in writing.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that takes us on to item 12, upcoming events and announcements. Council, are there any upcoming events or announcements anyone would like to share? Councillor Simpson?
Through the chair, I'd like to note that on February 22, that's next Saturday, not the coming Saturday, the week following, that there will be an event that is being set forward by residents from Ward 1 and 2 at the Upper Canada Camp on Concession 2 to beat the winter blues. All residents are welcome, and information will be put on the community Facebook page.
Okay, thank you. Any other events or announcements from council? All right, I have 3 items here just to address tonight. First of all, I just want to acknowledge that February is Black History Month. And each February, people across Canada participate in Black History Month events and celebrations that honor the legacy and contributions of Black people in Canada and their communities. The 2025 theme for Canada is Black History Month. It's Black Legacy and Leadership, celebrating Canadian history and uplifting future generations. We invite all Canadians to learn more about Black Canadian communities and how they continue to help shape Canada. And I encourage you to visit the Canadian Heritage website for additional information. The second item is with regards to this coming Saturday, February 15th. It is a National Flag of Canada Day. And just to provide some context here, at the stroke of noon on February 15th, 1965, Canada's red, white, and maple leaf flag was raised for the very first time on Parliament Hill. And on the same day in 1996, National Flag of Canada Day was declared. So our national flag is a symbol that unites Canadians and reflects the common values we take pride in: democracy, inclusion, and equity. And on February 15th, let's celebrate the 60-year anniversary of our Canadian flag. And I believe, again, Canadian Heritage has some great information on our flag and the history, and all of our flags, in fact, because we've had multiple over the years. And if you'd like to learn more, visit their website. And lastly, on Monday, February 17th is Family Day. As a reminder, our township offices will be closed for our staff to enjoy time with their families as well. And for those that do have the day off, I said this last year, Adam and I unfortunately do have to work as federal and Crown employees. But for those who do have the day off, I hope you're able to enjoy some winter activities with your friends and family. All right, Council, so we're moving on to item 13, which is the consent agenda. Are there items that would need to be pulled from the consent agenda or for comments? Councillor Borzos?
Through the chair, I'm interested in some more clarification on item 13.2 regarding the official plan on page 4 under key focus area settlement. there's a paragraph that deals with the number of dwelling units assigned to Forsyth and to the R&M subdivision within. While the Forsyth number seems to be correct, but the R&M number is incorrectly stated in there, I believe.
Okay.
It's,
Let's pull that. Just I'm trying to get through the presentation materials for
yeah,
the presenters, and
either way, it's good.
so let's pull that as well, and we can have a separate discussion on that. Other items to be pulled or comments, Councillor Meadows?
I'd like to call 13.1
Okay.
and 13.2.
Okay, thank you. Any other items from council? All right. So the motion then for our consent agenda will be that the consent agenda recommendations for 13.3 through to 13.6 be adopted as presented, and that staff be authorized to take all necessary actions. Any questions on those? Sorry, any questions on those items? Can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Cox. All those in favor? And that is carried. And both of those are staff reports, so they will be discussed at the end of the staff report section. All right. So that takes us on to 14, which is staff reports. 14.1 is staff report finance 2025-001, municipal insurance pool. Mr. Anderchuk.
Thank you, Worship. Just to continue on with the presentation with the Simcoe Municipalities Insurance Pool, this report is basically looking for direction for the township to move forward with the subscriber agreements, to appoint myself as the treasurer to the Municipal Insurance Advisory Board, and allowing us to move forward with signing off of the subscribers agreement and to join the municipal insurance pool should council agree.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions through to Mr. Anderchuk? Mr. O'Leary?
To the chair. The presentation we were given and the information you have, will our insurance be consistent with what we have and have had in the past? And the understanding I have is we're going to have to go and get separate cyber insurance. So are we presently, do we have separate cyber insurance, or is this a new thing we have to get?
Through the chair to the council, we do have cyber insurance, and we have for a couple of years now.
Okay. But
there'd be no change.
No change that way.
There'd be no change in the cyber insurance.
But what this group is offering us at a 10% discount is specifically what we have at the present time. Is that what you're saying?
Very similar in respect of with the insurance pool. There is a small difference in our liability deductible from 20,000 to going from 20,000 to 25,000, but we will have very similar, if not better, coverage by going with the pool.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, and I'll just remind everyone that Mr. Durrell is online, so if anybody wants to direct a question to him, we could certainly do that as well. So I'll allow Mr. Anderchuk to be the judge of that. Councillor Cox.
Through the chair to Mr. Anderchuk. Additionally, to Ron's question, do we also have environmental insurance currently? Because I believe they indicated that that was separate as well. And is it the same cost, or are we going to have to go out and procure our own environmental insurance?
Through the chair to the council, we do currently have environmental insurance through Marsh, our provider.
Okay. So I understand it correctly, we would still retain the necessary parts of our insurance through Marsh or any insurance provider and just drop the things that we would not require through the insurance pool. Am I understanding that correct, Mr. Andrechuk?
That's my understanding, but if Mr. Durrell wants to comment as well.
Yeah, I would say yes, and you can continue to procure those two separate pieces as you do through Marsh or any other broker if you wish. So you can continue to do that. Those are separate policies. It's quite similar to, you know, if you had eggs and bread and milk, the pool will cover the bread and the milk. You can continue to buy eggs separately however you want. So it's a separate product that can be placed separately, and the price and cost of that shouldn't be tied to the rest.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Simpson?
Through the chair, if we have any catastrophic claims, claims in excess of, I don't know, 10 million, if there are anything like that, what happens to any equity that we may have retained in the pool? Does that go away? Does that?
So I'll go to Mr. Durrell on that then.
Happy to answer that. So, as mentioned in the presentation, if there's a very large catastrophic loss like $10 million, the pool has already been funded to take on their portion of that. So it's being funded for that, and those kinds of losses are actually expected. They're not very frequently experienced. Losses over about $400,000 might be about one a year for the entire group. So they're infrequent, but if they do happen and there's a $10 million loss, mostly that would be borne on the insurer, the excess insurer, who would cover $9.5 million of that loss, whereas the pool would only really retain $500,000. And because it's being anticipated and funded for, it ought not to have an impact on your equity within the pool.
Noted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Borzos?
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Andrechuk, Mr. Durrell. Just thinking about Councillor O'Leary's question regarding the premiums here and what is not included. So at the present time, based on the last slide, we are paying $628,000 in premiums. I believe that's what the slide shows, or 2025. And then the pool cost for that would go down to $547,000. My question is that the $80,000 savings, would that cover the additional environmental insurance as well as the cyber policy that we do not have under the pool?
Mr. Andrechuk?
Mr. Durrell or
Mr. Andrechuk, so the question is would 81,000 cover the two items that we'd have to retain through our current insurance broker?
Well, through the chair to the councillor, well, yes, we already have the coverage for, like, the savings is, we already have the coverage for the cyber and the, like, it's already, this is savings under the savings we're achieving is under our liability, automotive, and property.
Oh, I see. So whatever we see numbers here do not include the environmental and or the cyber attack insurance coverages. They are handled under a separate account. This is strictly for what the pool would insure. So it's an apple-to-apple comparison. Okay, thank you.
It's great to see three hands go up at the same time, like get all that information. Any further questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Meadows?
Yeah, would there be any penalty or that? Because let's say we drop Marsh and we're only going with the two extra things, cyber and environmental with them. Do you think there will be an added cost or penalty for us only, like usually there's deductions or whatever in there? You know what I mean?
Mr. Andrechuk?
Yeah, sorry, through the chair to the councillors. So you're referring to,
like if we retain the environmental and the cyber,
and we're ending our other.
We're ending our others. Will those premiums for cyber and environmental go up because those are the only two things that we're going to be getting off of them? You understand what I'm saying?
Well, I asked the same question at County of Simcoe, and Mr. Durrell answered that actually and indicated, if I paraphrasing here, but their premium packages are set at a rate. So if you're purchasing a product from them, that's the rate that they charge all municipalities.
All
that product.
municipalities for that? Oh, okay.
So they shouldn't increase because you're dropping 10 items and retaining 2. They shouldn't increase those 2 items to compensate for the loss.
I know in my home policy, if I drop something, then yeah, it's like bundling. So I just want to make sure that we're not going to be unbundled.
Okay, any further questions, Councilor Meadows?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, again, council, any other questions on this item? Okay. All right, so do I have a mover for the recommendation? I have Councillor Cox and a seconder, please. Councillor O'Leary. So that staff report FIN 2025-001 dated February 12, 2025 regarding municipal insurance pool be received, and that the Township of Adjala-Tosorontio become a founding subscriber of the municipal insurance pool, and that the treasurer be authorized to represent the Township of Adjala-Tosorontio on Municipal Insurance Pool Advisory Board, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the form of subscription in the municipalities of Simcoe agreement substantially and the form attached as attachment 1. Any further questions or comments?
Sorry, I didn't catch who's going to be on the advisory board.
Be the treasurer.
Treasurer?
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? And that is carried. Mr. Durrell, Mr. Sibic, appreciate you being here and answering those questions for us. Safe travels, eh?
Thank you much. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, council, so we're going on to 14.2, which is staff report IND 2025-004, purchase of bandit wood chipper. Mr. Wilmets?
Through the chair, we did some research on different units, and we found that this one was a demo. We saved a considerable amount of money for one that's been used for 12 hours. It was originally set up for Ontario Hydro, and I asked why they didn't buy it. And the answer I got is Ontario Hydro was going out to tender. So all the suppliers were setting them up and giving them ones to use to try and bait them in their way. So this one has far more safety features than a standard one comes, and it comes in at a good price.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to Mr. Wilmets? Seeing none? Well, you can ask that certainly privately offline. Councillor Meadows?
Just curious, would it not be cheaper for us to tender the contracts out for wood chipping or no?
Mr. Wilmets?
Through the chair, no, it wouldn't, because it's on a day-by-day needed, and if it's a major storm and we're doing cleanup, it's impossible to rent or get a wood chipper. And we pull it around and you can use it in the subdivision or whatever. You don't have to load it into a truck, move it, stockpile it, and then get a big wood chipper in and change it. You're handling it multiple times. This way, it's off the tree into the chipper and gone.
And we also have a truck that will fit the...
Multiple trucks.
Multiple trucks that will fit the device. Thank you.
Any further questions from council? Seeing none, do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor O'Leary, second by Councillor Simpson. That staff report IND 2025-004 dated February 12, 2025 regarding purchase of bandit wood chipper be received, and that council approve the purchase of a bandit wood chipper from Paratech in the amount of $85,820.70 plus applicable taxes. Any further questions or comments? And all those in favor? That is carried. 14.3, staff report IND 2025-006, which is purchase of combination plow sander truck. Mr. Wilmets?
Again, this was approved in the capital budget. At the price at that point was $300,000 or $390,200. With one upgrade that we decided to go with was the automatic transmission. And the reason for that is we're having a terrible time hiring drivers that can drive standard transmissions now. And it seems that's the way that all municipalities are going now with the automatic transmission. And it's between $6,000 and $7,000 increase, as well as the increase in the interest on money, or is the difference, is why the increase.
Okay, thank you. And I understand correctly that the savings of the wood chipper budget would cover the yes. Thank you. Any questions or comments, Councillor Meadows?
Yeah, I'm just curious why we don't go with like local vendors with regards to our trucks, like Freightliner or
Mr. Wilmot?
Wayne Curry's does snowplows and contracts them out. And I'm just wondering why we don't go local. And Western Star seems to be, I know it seems to be the Cadillac of or even the county of Simcoe for that matter, why we don't, bunch up with the county of Simcoe when they're buying their fleets.
Through the chair, we tried that in my previous employment with saddling up with it. Everybody has their own special needs for the trucks, like pre-wets and all the rest, what the county's doing, and we don't. So to blanket order a truck through the county is very difficult. Because everybody has their own needs and wants on it. Going locally, it's Western Star, which is out of Barrie instead of Curry's and Alliston. But if you buy a truck from Curry's, it's not Alliston you're dealing with the dealer in Barrie for Freightliner, and then Curry just as a satellite.
He's just okay. I'm just saying, I always look to buy local when we're doing stuff and
I
support our local economy here rather than going to other places. And also the price of a Freightliner would be a heck of a lot less than what a Western Star would.
No, they're not. They're all competitive. They're all in the same market.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions? All right, seeing none, do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Borzos, seconded by Councillor O'Leary. That's staff report IND 2025-0060 to February 12, 2025 regarding purchase of combination plow sander truck be received, and that council approve the purchase of a Western Star truck with Viking Survey plow equipment in the amount of $412,310 plus applicable taxes. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Meadows?
These have to be built down in the States, correct? Or are they built up here?
The body, the plow harness and everything is built in Mount Forest.
Okay.
But the trucks themselves are built in the States. I checked with the dealer and there's no truck being built in Canada at the time right now.
Okay.
They're all.
No, I'm just wondering with the tariffs and that.
We got locked in before that, so we're in good shape.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the resolution? And that is carried. Okay, so we're on to 14.4, which is PLA 2025-002 S-Speed Adjala developments. Mr. Sally, would you like to provide initial comment? Would you like to? Sure, it's whichever. I go on to anyone who wants to provide initial comment on this, and then just to give council a bit of an update.
Yep, sure. So through you, Mayor, to council, we're here tonight with the staff recommending red line changes to the draft plan, which really have come about, and it's not unusual, through the finalization of the engineering plans. And really the changes just pertain to the stormwater management blocks and ensures that those all the necessary infrastructure related to the stormwater management systems are in the town ownership. So they're all township ownership, so they're all good changes. And as well as the subdivision agreement, draft subdivision agreement, which is an exciting point in this subdivision that has a very long history dating back to 1991. That this subdivision agreement, as attached to the staff report, really represents one of the final steps in bringing about registration and clearance of the draft plan of subdivision. So tonight we have Christina from Adjala. I'm not sure which actual name.
It's Signature Adjala.
Yeah. As well as Josh, Greenland Engineering, and we have Lee English, the solicitor that has prepared the draft subdivision agreement, all here to assist with any questions that council may have regarding this important step in this development in your township.
Perfect, and we have you, Mary, as well. So
and myself as well.
So welcome, everyone. We got the team here together. So certainly if there are any questions or comments from council, we're entertaining those. And I will, if you're okay, Mary, I'll go through you and you can direct it to anybody you think would be appropriate. Is that fine? Okay, thank you. All right, council, are there any questions through to staff? Okay, Councillor Meadows.
I have several, sorry. I've gone through all the documents that I could during the time I've had. I have a question for with the red line changes with the stormwater management system. I've been through the drawings and that on the stormwater management system. I don't see where the outflow is going other than into the valley. It's not going into the water system at all. It just seems like it's just draining out into the valley. Could you give me a little more specifics? I'm just going by the drawings that were presented to me and I've seen in the back here. So can somebody give me a little bit more clarity on it, please?
Sure, I'll direct that to Josh to answer. Greenland.
Yep, through yourself, Mary. There's two stormwater management facilities for this site, one in the north, one in the south. The facilities do control everything to below pre-development levels, and the discharge in both cases goes to a water course that sort of takes sort of a C shape around the site. And if you look at the TRCA mapping, that's the conservation authority that this site is within. You can see that water course. So both of the ponds outlet to that small water course down in the valley.
I guess there just wasn't enough detail showing that it goes in directly into that. So I was just wondering, is it like ditched all the way down? Like is it graded down and then ditched down? Is there?
I believe there's some infiltration capacity in those facilities. So it's actually meant to help groundwater recharge, and then it does flow out for the larger events.
Okay. Should I just go on with what I have on?
You may.
On
yes.
here?
Yep.
Okay. Page 45, item F.
This is of the subdivision agreement?
This is of the subdivision agreement. Yeah. Or should I just,
No, that's fine. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So
Okay.
if you're going to give a page number, we'd like to know.
I'd like to see it state all actions or claims relating to soil conditions and surface water and groundwater conditions on lands and surrounding properties. I'd like to see that addition in there. Item number 51. Sorry, I got a little discombobulated here during the 26. Item number 51, J3, item A. It says satisfactory of the municipality, but also I'd like to see in there on item A that meets provincial standards. Page 51. Page 57. Of the agreement. I'd like to see dry hydrants shall be in working order to the issuance of building permits. And have that as an extra item on there, item K. Page 60, K13, advise homeowner prior to the purchase that water supply may be limited and that it may be a requirement to install auxiliary storage and pressure facilities to augment water and well supply. And when I was reading some of the old documents, it said that should be a warning on the purchase agreement. It shouldn't just be added to the agreement. It should be a warning on the agreement. Page 61. K15, fire hydrants. I'd like to see item C, hydrants have to be in working order and operational prior to the build out and any issuance of any occupancy permits issued. So the hydrant should be first things done in this development. Item number 73. L4. Oh, sorry, page 73. Item L4. You got there, all works associated with storage, handling, and dispersing of fuels and other potential contaminants shall be installed, maintained, and operated so as to avoid contamination of environmental and shall be elevated or constructed to satisfy the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority with regards to the being located, that should state the TRCA and Humber River, because it's in the Humber River.
Sorry, what was that one again?
L4.
Yeah. Are you off the original one or the draft one that was previously, we've changed that already?
Oh, that one's already? Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. This is the one that I was given by staff, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
TRC, so it should say TRCA instead of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. Page 74. 76.
He's off two pages.
I can't remember. Yeah, it was L4.
So I'll clarify a wee bit here. So Councillor Meadows is working off a legal document size, so that's indicate the page numbers are going to be different. This was the original document that was circulated to council prior to the agenda publication. And since then, there were minor adjustments made to the subdivision agreement by staff, and they did catch some of the, well, that one in particular was just the wrong conservation authority that was noted, and it's been corrected to the TRCA,
okay,
not NVCA.
So it has been corrected, okay. 74, which would be 76. L5, item I, provide a copy of the monitoring results to the municipality and annual report and brought to council as correspondence. I guess it would be 77 on my next one. Is that correct?
Yep. It would be 75.
75. Well, 70, my 7. You're getting me confused now. 75, item L8, 3. It says completion of the drainage works and placement of new surfacing based on local roads pavement design standard from the entrance of the subdivision southward to the point where the gravel road ends and at the bridge or additional improvements required. The bridge could not hold the weight of the tankers and the fire trucks during one of our very first times this was brought to council. I'd like to know from the chief and from our chief building official what's going on with the bridge now, because that's always been an issue with this project, that the trucks were over capacity for that bridge and the bridge was in disrepair.
Ms. Anderson or?
Your worship, to Councillor Meadows, we have the structural report by Burnsides that was done on this bridge, so it's structure number 41. There are no load limits on this bridge. There are no concerns have been identified with the loading on this bridge, and it is due for a review for a re-inspection completed by Burnsides this year. So we have the documentation.
That's real funny because council was given information, and Eric, you know very well this particular subdivision agreement we had, and the information that was brought forward in the past to council, stating that bridge would not hold the fire services trucks, and it needed upgrading to do that. So I don't know why we're being told one thing now and something else back then. So especially when this is we're talking almost 2 terms of council back. So It's an older bridge now, so more damage has been done to it. So I'd just like to know what's happening.
I just,
Yeah, I know you're
advising
saying.
you of the Burnsides review.
Yeah.
It's going to be re-inspected in this year.
So
It will be assessed at that time, but this was a report that was given, I guess it's 2023.
okay. I don't know what to say on that one, but. 79. I guess it would be your 82. The owner has provided municipality with a cash deposit or security satisfactory to the municipality in the amount of $2,000 per vacant lot or block for use with the municipality to correct the grading or said vacant lots or blocks if the option of the municipality in the completed grading on the said vacant lots or blocks does not comply with the grading control plan, which deposit will be refunded upon satisfactory completion of the grading on the said lots or blocks. I think that's a little low, $2,000. If the township has to go in and fix the grading, which we have done in past situations, $2,000 isn't high enough. I think it should be a lot higher. I don't know what council thinks of that, but or what the chief building official thinks of that. But $2,000, I know one development, we had to do all sorts of grading upgrades, and it cost this township a substantial amount of money, not only from lawyers' fees to fight this thing, but to also do the work to get it done.
So I can go to Ms. Anderson if you like. I would just comment though, the difference of opinion and justification there is these are vacant lots with no structures whatsoever, and it's a simple matter of taking a grader in there and grading. Versus, I believe what you're referring to is actual constructed properties versus and having to go and do additional works, which would require specialized equipment, which in fact would cost more. Well, these are vacant lots that would not be developed. And if they were left in a state of disrepair, the township would have the authority to go in there and to grade the lot to satisfaction. That's my understanding, Ms. Anderson. Perhaps maybe you'd like to comment further.
But in saying that, because it's a conservation area, if we had to do that in the conservation area, it could get costly because of the fact, number one, we would have to do replanting and everything else like that if we had to put that back to its natural state. So.
Again, I'll go to Ms. Anderson, but it's under a plan of subdivision, so those lots would be developed and we could address that grading issue under the plan of subdivision and not through a conservation authority mandate. But Ms. Anderson?
I believe there'd be other securities in place to ensure compliance.
Well, as long as council's happy with that, but.
And yeah, through your worship, also there's detailed securities listed on page 38. And in that, there's a deposit of $150,000 that speaks to grading as well. So there are other securities and deposits that are in place to secure that it's built according to the approved plans.
Well, it's just the reason why I'm speaking up on it, Ms. Fahili, is because we've had issues in other developments in the township where the township has lost a lot of taxpayer dollars fighting these issues of improper grading, and it's become very costly to the tune. I can't discuss the amount of money, but I'm just saying it's a lot of money, and I just don't want to see the taxpayers on the hook again. 84, or sorry, 86. Item I, again, the minimum limit shall be 5 million. I think that should be a lot higher. I don't know what council thinks, but $5 million.
It went to age 87.
General liability insurance policy, item I. The minimum limit shall be $5 million, all inclusive for any single occurrence of property damage and personal liability.
Mr. Maitland, would you be able to maybe comment, or Mr. English potentially, just as a comment, is what would be standard limits of liability for for a subdivision agreement? Is that standard, 5 million? I'll go to Mr. English, maybe, potentially.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just confirming what we did for tribute now, and I note that and just observe that if I'm going to give any legal advice, it might be prudent to park those questions and go into closed session so we don't waive privilege, but I'm saying that now just while I confirm the amount of the security, P1I, just a moment. Or insurance, sorry, yes, P1I. It was the same agreement requirements with the tribute subdivision.
Okay, so
which I understand was larger.
Correct, so we're remaining consistent to the project. Okay, thank you.
Okay. 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 Insurance for the stormwater management facility maintenance. And it should state there, the owner agrees to provide sufficient insurance securities in the amount to be determined by the Director of Infrastructure and Development for the purpose of maintenance shall be retained by the township for the stormwater management facility for a period of 5 years after the issuance of the certificate of substantial completion for the stormwater management facility. And I think it should state in there somewhere that after, or by the municipality after it's been assumed, the development has been assumed.
I'm not sure what you're asking there.
I'm just saying shouldn't that say instead of 5 years after issuance of a certified of substantial completion of the stormwater management facility. So they're saying after 5 years after it's been built. What if the subdivision takes a lot longer to build out than what they should? And we're on the hook now for the stormwater management to be cleaned out at a certain time. That should state that after the assumption of the municipality, so we have more time before we clean it out. So that should state after the subdivision has been assumed, we take liability for the stormwater management system.
Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe somebody, and again, we'd have to dive into this maybe a bit deeper than I would know off the section, but I believe there's a clause in there that would indicate that the developer would have to do maintenance of the stormwater management if needed prior to the assumption of the subdivision, regardless of it being certified prior to. I believe that is a stipulation in there. I think I did see that, but we could clarify that too.
Okay.
Continue.
I just got a couple more. Okay. Okay, the engineer may be required to check the elevations for the building, the location of the septic system, the location of the well, and also on the plans, if needed, it should state the cistern, where the cistern is going to be located on the property, if needed. That'll be between item 4 and item 5 somewhere on page 91. S10.
Can I go to Ms. Anderson on that? Just to clarify that if anyone was applying for a building permit, they would need to have a site plan indicating where the well and cistern was going to be located? Outside of the subdivision agreement, there'd be a requirement of the building
These would
permit?
be all identified and taken care of as part of the building permit process. The well would be in place, and then we would take things, we would have as-built drawings once the septic system is complete. The engineering drawings will identify all of the grading and the plotting of the house. And then once everything is complete, we get the as constructed, so we can confirm all of the locations and the final grading.
Right, but I'm just
Typically
saying
in something like this, we would have a final grading plan too.
yeah, but I'm just saying it should mention cistern on here too, I think.
I believe because it's addressed under the building permit process.
Okay. S13 water supply. Purchaser, it says is advised. It should say shall be advised in the purchase agreement under, again, warning. S15, Purchaser is advised that the development beyond the permit maximum 10% lot coverage, which includes accessory structures and pools, will not be supported, and the installation of in-ground pool sprinkler systems are prohibited because of the water problems that we have over there.
Sorry, just clarify, you're asking for that to be included in the subdivision?
That should be included in there.
We'd have to go into closed session to determine whether that be legal or not. So that's, again, we could park that question if we absolutely need to discuss that one.
Okay, we'll park that then. And page 94, Schedule T, T1. No building permits will be issued without proof of adequate potable water supply for size of dwelling. That should be also there under development charges to be paid or whatever, I don't know. Or does that just automatically happen? I think we had a bit of a discussion on that
Yeah,
before I put this
Ms.
down.
Anderson?
Yes, prior to the issuance of the building permit and under, doing the review of this, we will have confirmation that there's adequate water supply and that it is potable prior to the issuance, and we'll have engineering design on that. So if there is a cistern or something that is required to ensure adequate supply, we'll have all of that information prior to. And it'll be site specific based on the type of model of house that they're putting in.
Okay, and one more item that wasn't, I may have missed it in the subdivision agreement. All lots will be equipped with a sump pump discharge onto the surface. I don't know if I saw that in, I've been through the agreement. I didn't see anything with regards to that, but it is in one of the other agreements that was brought forward, so.
Again, it's a requirement under the Ontario Building Code as well. So they'll be discharged at grade. We can't have dry wells.
Yeah, I know, but our last issue that we had over in the Colgan developments, I just don't want happening here, so it should have been in the subdivision agreement.
So if I'm looking at this, case 16 is all lots will be equipped with a sump pump that will discharge onto the surface.
That's correct.
And no permit occupancy of any dwelling unit prior to the installation of a sump pump.
Yes.
That's currently captured in there.
Yeah.
Any other
That's
questions
it.
or comments? Okay.
No problem.
Other questions from council? Councillor O'Leary?
Through the chair, my question is, I see this all the time, is that instead of providing a park, we're taking a cash payout. Now, my question is, how do you evaluate what a cash payout for that would be? Like, how do you, because like most parks would consist of over an acre, maybe an acre and a half. And that would be basically a lot within this subdivision. Now, my issue is, instead of taking the cash payout, why not as a township, why not would we be given a lot? I know we're not a developer, so that's probably out of the question. But how do you evaluate how much money you're going to give in cash to a township? That's my first question.
Really?
Through your worship, the Planning Act sets out how parkland dedication is obtained. So there's a certain value that's determined through an appraiser, and that can be peer reviewed. And then a percentage of that value is what is to be required as parkland dedication. And then that's given to the township and put towards wherever the township sees fit or wherever the official plan identifies that parkland should go. Not every subdivision is ideal for providing parkland for different reasons. In this case, a park in this subdivision where it's a state residential, they already have very large lots, and there's only 25 lots that would benefit from that park. versus being able to put those funds towards improving parkland that is more accessible to more residents is one of the rationales that can be applied when deciding to take cash in lieu of parkland or taking land for parkland.
Supplementary. Sir. My other question is, and it's with regards, it's the same quotations that there will be no sidewalks provided. And under the Planning Act, I would imagine that this is acceptable. But my question is that, are we not opening ourselves up for future lawsuits and that? Because somebody's going to be walking on our street and we're not going to have proper lighting. Somebody's going to get hurt or even worse. And when we don't provide a sidewalk, it's 25 units. So that means there's going to be 50 cars in and out of there daily because everybody has 2 cars, if not more. And, you know, like, are we not opening ourselves up to a liability thing here down the road? Maybe not now, but I don't think we should be building subdivisions, whether it's 25 houses or 2,000 houses, without sidewalks.
Ms. Feely, without commenting legally on.
Yes, without commenting on the liability piece. Sidewalks are designed in different like cross sections for roads. This is more of a rural cross section because it's a different nature than you would see in a more suburban or urban or more densely populated area. And sidewalks are key to community connections, to say schools, to different stores, to connecting residents who want to walk to these different community facilities. It's a bit different in an estate residential where they're only residential lots. You don't have that mixing of uses and you don't have the school. So it's not uncommon in estate residential not to see sidewalks constructed, and instead seeing that constructed in a more urban cross section, and the drainage and the stormwater facilities and planning that come with putting sidewalks and curbs in versus a rural cross section. But I don't know if Josh wants to add on to what I've said at all. That's from a planning perspective. Thank you.
Yep, through the chair. Yeah, I would agree with that statement. It's fairly typical that a rural cross section would you'd want to maintain the rural character, and there is a lot more that's required. Particularly here, there's no need for storm sewers, so an urbanized cross section wouldn't make as much sense as the drainage is done with ditches here. So yeah, generally, yes, I would agree with Mary's statement.
Okay, any further questions, Councillor O'Leary?
No, I'm just basically, they're not required. That's what you're telling me.
That they're not required here.
Okay.
Other questions or comments from members of council? All right, seeing no others, there is a proposed recommendation on the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to move that? Of Councillor O'Leary, sorry. Well, you could put your hand up too. Deputy Mayor Laux for a mover. Do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Cox. Okay, I'll read the recommendation. Now, the planning report 2025-002 dated February 12, 2025 regarding the proposed SB Adjala Development Incorporated 2620242, Ontario Incorporated and Signature Adjala Developments Incorporated subdivision development agreement be received, and that council grant approval for the proposed red line revisions to the draft plan as presented in the report, and that council authorize the execution of the subdivision development agreement for the approved draft plan under section 5125 of the Planning Act to satisfy the conditions of draft approval and permit registration of the plan of subdivision for the subject lands legally described as part of Lot 2, Concession 4, Township of Adjala-Tosorontio. Any further questions or concerns with the resolution? Councillor Meadows?
Yeah, I move to amend the motion by replacing the last paragraph with the amendment comes back to council after updates are complete, and strike out the last paragraph there.
Okay, so, sorry? Okay, so I got seconded. Now I'm looking for some clarification though, because I'm trying to understand what striking out the last paragraph would do when the bylaw is on the agenda for adoption later on in the meeting. So I'm just looking for clarification as to what the intent of approval once the document is signed, or
no, before it's signed and before we've made a decision on it. I have brought forward several additions in that, or stuff that I think needs changing on process. So until I see some changes, I'd like to. This happened in the last subdivision agreement where I had comments that were ignored, and I would just like to make sure that my comments are not going to be ignored on this, and that it comes back to council and revised.
okay. Clarifies it a wee bit for me. The concern that I have is and maybe staff could speak to this a wee bit more, but this has went through thorough examination by the team that we have here. And so I guess I'm going to ask council, like if we want to make these changes, then that has to be the consensus of council to make these changes, to go back to staff to make these changes. And if there is no desire to do that, then the amendment should be defeated and we move on to the approval of the agreement as is and be executed by staff and our engineering firm on the final drawings. The concern that I have is we've went through this process at considerable length. And most of the questions that I've heard from Councillor Meadows on these items either don't need to be changed or could be clarified further by staff. I think that could be addressed at a later time. So that's my opinion on the amendment. And again, the amendment's on the floor, so I can let it stand as is, but it would just be striking out. So just for clarity again, so we're striking out the last paragraph of the resolution. Okay, and Madam Clerk, did we capture that for an amendment?
Through your worship, I did capture that we would be striking the last paragraph and that staff would be directed to amend the subdivision agreement as outlined and to bring it back for final approval of council.
At a later, next council meeting, is that okay?
My preference, your worship, would be that should this motion carry, Councillor Meadows provide us a list of those amendments and they would be inserted into the motion so that it's clear what changes need to be made to the subdivision agreement as per council's direction.
Okay. All right, so we're going to speak to the amendment only. So Councillor Cox.
Yeah, through the chair with the amendment, would it be beneficial to just have a whole meeting to have answers rather than like editing the document? Because maybe some things in the document don't need edited, right? Like if maybe they give you, because you have some very valid questions. Maybe we should have a meeting with our legal.
Oh, we got everybody here tonight, so if we want to.
When I believe, doesn't some of have to be enclosed?
We can certainly go back into closed session. We can do that. We can table this report to the end of the meeting and finish off with our topics and ask everybody to stick around for a bit longer. But the question that I would have is making sure that we're asking public questions in public before we go into any in-camera meeting to discuss legal, so that we can avoid having 8 people here for one person that has to be in the room, which is Mr. English. So we could certainly, but I just don't know if delaying the process for a special council meeting to bring everybody back into the room is any advantageous to dealing with some of the questions that we had tonight.
Supplementary, would we even, would this, the readily available staff and consultant, would they be able to provide us with the answers? Like, for instance, the load on the bridge. Like, I don't know if that's a known right now. That was a question that was brought up.
Well, that's been answered. I guess the concern would be is the delay. If we wanted to call a special meeting, Friday or Monday or something like that, The concern here would be delaying this process a further month, when in the subdivision agreement, I believe they want to start works in as early as March. So that would be the issue. That would be the concern. So I hear where you're coming from. Okay, and it just depends if you think those we can answer those comments here tonight, or we can get staff to get back to those comments. My concern again is Councillor Meadows is the only one that has brought those comments up, and if no one shares those same concerns, then I wouldn't see why we wouldn't propose to approve the subdivision agreement. Councillor O'Leary?
To the chair, my concern is the bridge. Apparently.
Okay, can I interject then for a moment?
Okay.
We got the concern, let's ask it then. So.
No, but this report, like, what about the reports previous to this? Why, like, I'm not saying the bridge isn't safe. I'm just saying that why previously has this bridge been condemned, and then all of a sudden now it's not condemned, and then when we go to build a subdivision, we're going to have to put $3 million into a new bridge. So I mean, like, it's going to cost the taxpayers $3 million to replace a bridge. So I mean, I would rather we defer it to a later date till we get a confirmation and a written approval by our engineering firm that this bridge is satisfactory, then go ahead and proceed, and then end up having to bite the bullet when it's condemned. Thank you.
Councillor Simpson?
Through the chair, I just want to note that Councillor Meadows raised concerns, and those concerns are not his own as well. I share those concerns, especially the bridge. You know, there are things that we would have liked in there, but some of those things we weren't able to get in. You know, sidewalks being one. You know, there's a host of things. So I think having a second chance to meet again and discuss the matter a little bit more is a good idea. It also, you know, gives council a chance to review everything better. So I support that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Borzos?
Through the chair, to Ms. Anderson, if I understand correctly, there's another safety inspection or inspection scheduled for that particular bridge in a not too distant future?
Yeah. Through your worship, yes, that bridge is due to have a re-inspection this year.
Any supplement?
We could.
Any idea when that might happen?
Mr. Wilmots?
Yeah, through the chair, they are usually taken after the frost and the high water goes down, because they actually get in underneath the bridge in hip waders or whatever they need to do the inspection underneath. So it's usually midsummer when they actually do the inspections.
So that would be like June, July, or maybe May, June type of.
Yeah, June, July for sure is usually when they're in the water.
And I understand it's not ideal what I'm going to suggest, but I would personally love to wait for that inspection just to see exactly what's going on right now, not 2 years ago when the other inspection was taken, and perhaps reconvene and do everything based on that. But that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else before I go back around? Okay, Councillor Meadows?
Yeah, I just have one comment, and that is there should be ample information with regards to past fire chief, the fire chiefs that know about this project have made recommendations. Some of them never went through. One of them was for a second entrance to the development, which was changed. Straightening of the road was another big issue that was changed, and the bridge was a formidable problem. And there should be record retention in this corporation that shows all these problems and all these issues that were brought up to past councils. And I'm just saying that I can't understand why it's not readily available for this meeting. Thank you.
All right, council. So there is an amendment on the floor. Now, again, after further discussion, it appears that maybe the amendment's not the ideal item here and that a referral back to staff would be more suited for this. So I'll look to the mover and seconder. You can certainly continue with the amendment. It would indicate that the agreement would come back before final approval. It does the same thing. And I guess what I'm hearing from council is that we would want a separate meeting to discuss this topic. That's what I'm hearing. So the mover and seconder, you're okay with the amendment? I would. Okay, so you withdraw the amendment?
The amendment.
Okay. So again, just to steer things along here, so you'd be looking to refer the subdivision agreement back to staff with further consultation with council. Have something?
Through your worship, as we're just moving a motion to refer, we can just simply be, the motion can simply just state that agenda item 14.4 be referred to staff for further consultation with council. And are we looking for a special council meeting, or we can discuss those details?
We can discuss those details later.
Okay, and then so we can just leave it at that it be referred back to staff for further consultation with council.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? I have Councillor Cox. Okay, any questions on the referral back to staff? Okay. All those in favor of referring the report? That is carried. All right, so we're on to 14.5, which is, sorry, I'll just comment. Thank everyone for joining us. And Mary, if you're free to go, if you'd like.
Get out of here.
And Mr. English, thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you for indulging my virtual appearance in light of this evening's weather.
Yes, not a problem, and we'll see you again.
Absolutely. Take care.
Okay, so 14.5 is the proposed land acknowledgement and reconciliation action plan committee terms of reference, and I'll send this over to the clerk for initial comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to council, over the last few months, the Reconciliation Action Committee has been working with our consultants, Tiffany Taylor and Carrie Ann Charles, to develop a land acknowledgement for council's consideration and approval at this council meeting based on a notice of motion that was brought forward in 2023 and approved by council. Today, we're presenting the land acknowledgement for approval by council. Should council choose to proceed with approval of it, the intention is that the land acknowledgement will be read at all regular, special, and committee meetings. In addition, we are asking that the mandate for the Reconciliation Action Plan Committee be extended to the end of the 2026 term of council, and a terms of reference is attached to the staff report for your consideration this evening.
Okay, thank you. As chair of the Reconciliation Action Plan Committee, I just wanted to comment and thank the members of the committee for their hard work and the consultants' work, and our clerk's department as well. It was a really team effort on developing this, and a lot of good discussion, and to be honest, a learning experience for all of us, I believe. I'm not sure if anybody else wanted to provide any comments on the committee. Okay. Any questions from council with regards to this item? Councilor Meadows?
Yeah, Ms. Budgell made a comment with regards to the legalities of the wording in that. Has it gone through to our lawyers at all to have a look at that document?
Ms. Reed?
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Meadows. No, the land acknowledgement was just vetted through our consultants.
Supplemental.
Yes, sir.
There was mention of treaty in the land acknowledgement. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, that particular treaty, does that encompass all of Adjala-Tosorontio or just a portion of Adjala-Tosorontio? All of it?
Ms. Reed?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Meadows, all of it would be covered in our lands. Our consultant, one of our consultants, Carrie and Charles, is actually a resident of one of our local First Nations communities. So we were using their consulting to ensure that our land acknowledgement captures all the treaty lands necessary within our land acknowledgement.
Well, a treaty is a land, as being part of the land acknowledgement, carries a big legal weight. And there's a lot of legal wording in there that we got to be careful with. And I think it would be better off being vetted through a legal lawyer with regards to that treaty for the wording and whether it can be used against us, like Ms. Budgell has commented. So I'm just apprehensive of the agreement if it hasn't been vetted through our own legal teams. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or concerns from council with regards to this? Okay, there is a proposed recommendation. Is there anyone that would like to move that? Okay. I have Councillor Cox, and do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Simpson. So I'll read the recommendation that staff report CLK 2025-003 dated February 12, 2025 regarding proposed land acknowledgement and reconciliation action plan committee terms of reference be received, and that council approve the land acknowledgement for the township of Adjala-Tosorontio as presented in this report, and that the township land acknowledgement be read at all regular council, special council, and committee meetings, and that the reconciliation action plan ad hoc committee mandate be extended to the remainder of the 2022 to 2026 term of council, and the proposed committee terms of reference attached to this report be approved. Any further questions or comments? Any amendments or considerations? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you, council. At this time, since it is in the report, and I would take the opportunity to actually read the land acknowledgement. So the township of Adjala-Tosorontio is situated on lands within Treaty 18, being the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples, including the Ojibwe, the Dawa, and the Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. This land is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We acknowledge Indigenous peoples as stewards of the land, and we honor their resilience as well as their culture, and of our shared respect for the lands, plants, animals, and waterways, which sustains us all. We recognize the injustices against Indigenous peoples and are mindful that the decisions of government impact our shared land and all the inhabitants. We commit to reconciliation as a journey, foster Indigenous cultural awareness and educational opportunities, establish respectful and healthy relations with Indigenous peoples, continue to steward the land and its inhabitants, and to cultivate an inclusive community for all. So council, we did add 2 additional staff reports to the agenda this evening. So the first item is 13.1, which is IND 2025-005, Colgan Subdivision Service Review. And just a matter of procedure, I'll go to Mr. Wergel as the author of the report, if you'd like to provide initial comment on it.
Your worship, staff provided this report in response to a series of questions that were received by council from members of the public. Staff, in trying to provide a comprehensive response to those questions, we provided a report which broke the questions down into 3 main categories, being 1, capacity of the municipal water system, 2, establishment of water and wastewater rates, and 3, authority for subdivision agreements, monitoring, and securities release. So we tried to provide a comprehensive answer. It's all there. Included with the answers were some further considerations for council in moving forward. in addressing those concerns. That would be, I would say, due diligence that council may want to consider in moving forward from this report.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that update. Are there any questions or comments with regards to the item? I have Councillor Meadows.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I have a few questions here. I don't know if I'm going to get through them all because I only have 3 minutes. Council accepting the report means that council has confirmed savings of $5 million. I've not received any financials to justify this amount. Has anyone else on council received the breakup of the $5 million in savings in writing? I just want to know if there's any, because you can pull a number out of the air, but I don't know where this $5 million came from. I've never seen a report on council with regards to how this $5 million has come about.
So are you asking council that question?
No, I'm asking, well, I asked council that question and nobody else seems to have seen it, so.
So you are asking council that?
I'm asking council, yes.
Would you like to read through your questions or would you like to have questions answered as you go along?
Oh, as I go along, that would be fine.
Okay. So the $5 million as it's written in the report is, Mr. Wergel could comment on it if you'd like, but if you're asking council whether they've seen it, I have. I was given that information from our staff as an estimate, and it is an estimate of what our cost share would have been for the construction of a wastewater treatment plant in Colgan that we did not have to pay because the developer relieved us of that cost and constructed the facility at their own cost.
Okay.
So that's an estimate of what's projected to be there. For example, I'm just going to throw a ballpark number out here just for the sake. If it cost them $35 million to build, we would have been responsible for a share of that. They relieved us of a share of that, and we saved considerable number of dollars and estimated to be about $5 million.
Well, here's where my problem lies. From the reports and from what we were told in this report, they're using 2.67 to 2.8 persons per household. Is that correct?
Mr. Wergel?
Mr. Wergel?
Yes.
Which one was it? 2.67 or 2.8? Because the EXP report that I saw was 2.67.
I think the design that they used was 2.67, and the county of Simcoe had recognized that we have a persons per unit density of 2.8.
So they used 2.67 to build out this plant. So 2.67, and the average person that's in the house is between 4.5 to 5 people per unit. So already it's over capacity. We're doubling our size. So we're not saving $5 million. So the report is off substantially as far as I'm concerned, because it's going to be undersized now if we have to add on to it. And that was even brought up in one of our meetings with regards to infrastructure when John Thompson came here, and I wanted to add 4 more people onto, or 4 more units onto that. And he says, we don't know if we're going to have capacity. And that was right in a public meeting. So that was one of my issues. Anyways, that's my take on it. I haven't seen any other reports, so other than what was presented. Schedule T of the subdivision agreement states development charges to be upfronted only for 315 homes. Who authorized the developer to pay the development charges for all 615 homes upfront? And so the township has lost money on this development as it goes up every year with indexation.
Okay, we can get an answer for that from Ms. Anderson, I believe, but I also believe we have to be cognizant of the fact that there's 2 subdivision agreements, Colgan 1 and Colgan 2, and both sections apply to each individually. So there are different numbers that vary between one and the other. But Ms. Anderson, if you'd like to provide comment on collection of DCs.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Meadows. When you take both sides of the subdivision, it comes to a total of 525 units that were approved for a rating, a DC rating at the time of the execution of the subdivision agreement. So that rate was paid, but apparently there was an error, and tribute was given the higher amount because our DCs change in October, so it can get a bit confusing. We have run all of the numbers. That overpayment was applied towards, as they pulled permits, the DCs that were applicable at the time of permit issuance were credited. So there was a number that came out about the overpayment. And we've got all of the documentations. They have been paying the current DC rates. There have been no credits. The only one they got a break on was the part that it was applicable at the time of the subdivision agreement, which was the October 2020 agreement, DC charges. So every house that has been issued after the 525 that were previously approved were charged the rate in place at the time of the permit fees. So we have the calculations showing that.
Okay, supplemental to that, then how much more money did we make on DC charges then for that?
As the fees were indexed each year, they get indexed. There was a 2020 rate, and then the development charge bylaw was redone. So then it wasn't reinstated until December 1st. As the rates went up, they went up on an average. I think the first jump went from $6,000 to, then it went to $9,000 at the next classification. And these are I'm just stating single family dwellings. I'm not going into the different categories, but each house was applicable at that time. October 2022, the rate was $10,000, $10,900. So you can read that in the development charge bylaws. These are all the pamphlets that are available on the municipal website. The 2023 rate went up to $11,000, 11 and change.
Issue by issue and give it. I've got concerns about that same thing, that same topic. So can we have an opportunity perhaps to?
That would be up to the chair, so.
Well, Councilor Meadows, you have the floor. So would you rather go through, there's 3 sections of the report. Would you rather go through each section of the report individually and around the table and do it that way? Or what's your thought?
Well, I have my questions and I'm sure Anoop's got his, so I'll just finish with mine because I only got a few more left, so.
Mine are going to be on the same
Well,
topic.
then you can ask her similar questions, but if there's something else you want to ask, then,
Councilor Meadows, continue with your.
Okay. Thank you, Debbie. The report states on August 9th, 2023, Council approved the removal of the hold and permitted holding tanks or off-site disposal to enable the development to proceed before final completion of the sewer plant. This was to be entirely at the cost of the developer with no cost to the township or residents. I'm just wondering why the residents of Colgan are being billed for wastewater if the developer is paying for the costs, and the residents of Colgan, as far as I'm concerned, should be refunded.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Mr. Virgil on that question.
Your worship, the water and wastewater charges bylaw requires that we charge for wastewater once the water meters are installed and operational.
Through the chair.
We're just following the bylaw.
Through the chair. With regards to that, though, when the hold came to council, I strictly remember it was going to be at the cost of, that's one of the reasons why we asked, because the township wasn't going to be borne any costs or anything like that with regards to that. That the developer was going to bear all the costs for us taking off the hold. They were going to put it in holding tanks and take the sewage away. Okay. We were promised that the wastewater treatment plant was going to be finished in March 2024. It's now almost March 2025, and the plant's still not going. So it's about a year behind. And that was one of my other questions, is when is this wastewater treatment plant going to be in operation? And what's causing the holdup?
Mr. Urgo, before I wanted to comment on one item. Because Mr. Urgo was not here at the time. Mr. Thompson was here during that presentation of the report, and he indicated that Tribute felt that they would have that plant operational in March. He felt contrary to that, and he told us distinctly at that time that he felt that their timelines were not going to be met, and that we would expect delays in the construction. So I just wanted to clarify that that was explained at the time of lifting of the hold, that the plant would take considerable time to construct based on the experience that Mr. Thompson has had with building wastewater treatment facilities. Mr. Urgo, on the other questions?
Further to that, the plant is fully operational. They are not hauling waste away anymore. The effluent is being transmitted through the pipeline, and it's fully operational. And it's been operational since, I believe, the second or third week of October of 2024.
And when I looked over when I looked over the report that was given to council, nowhere did I see anything with regards to the nursing home or the water consumption that's going to be taken out of that nursing home. So I'm truly concerned with the report that came forward to council that is inaccurate and some of the numbers just don't jive. So that's just my suggestion with this report that came forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments, Councillor Simpson?
Through the chair, I too have concerns about the report and some of what's in there. And I'd also like to get some more information and clarification on how an old age home that's supposed to be part of this subdivision, how we did not factor in water and wastewater. Perhaps staff can give some clarity on that and whether that's normal practice.
Okay.
Through your worship, I looked for that information and I didn't see any calculations for the seniors residents. They might be there. I don't know what the current plans are for the seniors residents. I've heard rumor that it's not proceeding, but I haven't been able to clarify that. I also haven't seen any calculations on what the consumption would be of the seniors residents. And this is why I had indicated within the considerations that we do watch that just out of due diligence. Certainly this and any other development that hasn't been accommodated for or calculated for, that should be verified. It should be checked by further engineering to make sure that we're okay.
Just with regard to the old age home, who's going to be owning that property? Would the developer still own that property until a suitable old age home comes forward to purchase that property?
Your worship, I have no idea what the plans are for that.
Okay, could we get some clarity at some future date on that? Or if you could. The next question is with regard to the school. I note here that in the report, we're showing about 20 liters. I did have a look at the design guidelines for municipal drinking water, and that act specifically says that the amount that we should be calculating for schools is 70 liters, which is 20 gallons. So I think someone's kind of messed up the numbers. So just, if you could take a look at whether it's gallons or whether it's in liters and just clarify that amount also. The next thing is the DC rate. So in the report, we have, it shows that we've collected 615 homes that paid a development charge in 2022 at $4,731,300. And I've had a chance to look through the subdivision agreement, and it's 525 units that we're supposed to prepay. As a general rule, for our community, I generally like to see development charges being collected at the time that a building permit is issued. Is there a reason why we pre-collected, and what was the amount that we collected?
There was, in my understanding, in the subdivision agreement about the 525 homes.
Okay.
So for the 525 homes at the 2020 rate, as it was identified in the subdivision agreement, we collected $3,222,676 for the singles, and then we collected for 47 townhomes. It is a different rate. We collected at a rate at $5,621. We collected $264,187. That was for a total of just over 3.4 million.
If I may,
that was at the 2020 rate.
2020 rate. Why did we collect at the 2020 rate when the DC rate came into effect in 2021? The new DC rate came into effect in 2021, and this subdivision agreement was signed in 2022. So why is there that discrepancy? Because I've spoken to, staff that were previously here, and they always give me conflicting numbers, and I've always seen conflicting numbers, and I've never gotten a straight answer from anybody about what that number is. So are we, if based on what's here, if it's 4,731,300 for 525 houses, then yes, we've come to the correct DC rate of $9,000, which is a horrible number to begin with. But that looks like the right number, 9,000, about thereabouts per house. So did we collect for what's in this report, or did we collect 525?
We collected 525.
Okay.
As per the agreement. And I'm just taking the numbers from when the subdivision agreement was executed. There was a delay or a bit of a change with the DC charges and what got applied. So therefore, the 2020 rate got applied.
But can we not collect the 2021 rate, which is what it should have been? Because it was $9,000 per home in 2021. And I do see in the report here that 4,731,300 in development charges were collected in 2022.
There was an overpayment in 2022.
But is it an overpayment? I think we collected, or they provided the correct amount, and it looks to me like we've made a mistake and applied a 2020 DC rate, when in fact we were supposed to collect based on the 2021 bylaw, which was 9,000.
What's challenging with the DCs is they get increased in October. This was the 22 rate. The 2022 rate would not be applicable until October of 2022.
Sorry, the 2021 rate would not be applicable until 2022 October, is what you're saying?
No, the 2020, this is where, believe me, it took a lot of figuring trying to follow this.
Yeah.
So the rates get applied October 1st of every year.
Okay.
Okay.
When did we pass the bylaw?
The exception for the 2021 rate was not applied until December of 2021.
So it was applied in 2021.
Yes.
But it wouldn't take effect until 2022 October? It looks like somebody screwed up, and we essentially, the municipality lost $2 million.
So if I might lend a hand in clarifying this, the agreement was signed on the 9th day of November in 2021.
So
the new rate would have taken effect in October of that year. However, the agreement was already executed with the developer prior to the new development charges going up. So that's why they're billed at 2020 rate
So,
for the first 500 and some odd homes. Any
so
subsequent homes after that were, when they were in the permit stage, where DCs were collected in the year the permit was issued. So if a permit was issued in October 21, sorry, if the permit was issued in August of 2021, they would be applicable to the 2020
I'm sorry, why would
DCs. Anything in October would have been applied to 2021.
so the subdivision agreement was completed in November of 2022.
It was
No?
signed in November of 2021
November of 2021?
with the DC rate of 2020. So the first homes that were indicated in the subdivision agreement, the original documented 500 and some odd homes were payable for DCs of 2020. And Tribute paid the 2021 rate, which was the overpayment that Ms. Anderson has said. So now they had a credit because they overpaid for the DCs.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. What you're saying is, we knew our development charge was going to $9,000. And despite knowing that our development charge is going to $9,000, which is a very cheap rate in this area. Municipality to our south is at 130,000. Municipality to our right is at 100,000. We know where this development is happening. And you're telling me that at $9,000, which we knew was super cheap, that we couldn't put a clause in that subdivision agreement saying that they're paying the new rate?
Again, Ms. Anderson, if you'd like to attempt to answer the question, here's what I'll give you the expression of at the time. This project had been delayed considerably. Had council delayed the signing of a bylaw by 1 or 2 months to capture a new DC rate, would have been acting in bad faith, and we probably would have ended back up in court. Because that's what you're suggesting. You're suggesting that we would have delayed the signing a subdivision agreement by a month, so that the developer would have to pay the 2020 21 rate rather than 2020.
So I think this is bad planning, and respectfully, I've brought this up time and time again in this council with regard to our DC rates and with regard to master plans that need to be completed prior to signing any agreement with any developer, that we need to get our act together, because we cannot be going to developers after the fact and saying, hey guys, can you give us a little bit of money for a park? Can you give us a little bit of this for this? We should not be begging after the fact. We should be prepared before the fact, before we get to any agreement, that this is what we expect. This is what our numbers ought to be. This is what we're expecting if you're going to develop in our township. And at this point, we are not there. So I'm very concerned. I would like to also note that with regard to the $5 million in savings, that savings, as I understand it, is based on our connection fees. That's not savings. That's a mistake to say that that is savings, because what that is that we have a connection fee that is not accurate. We have a connection fee that does not adequately take into consideration the cost to build infrastructure for a subdivision. And if we're charging a developer $23,000 for a house, that's the rate for Colgan, and $16,000 in Everett per house for a connection fee, and to build a facility in Everett, for example, we've already come to a number of $45 million, which is what we're looking at right now for Everett, for a wastewater facility. And we're gonna charge them $16,000 per home. Well, yeah, you know, if we tell the developer, hey, developer, you wanna put 2,000 houses in this area, and oh, hey, it's only 16,000. Yeah, you're gonna get $20 million in savings. But you know, that's not savings, because that's wastewater facility is being built for that subdivision. right? So if you're going to charge 45 million to build a facility for a specific subdivision, then the cost that subdivision needs to pay for connection fees needs to be commensurate to what we're collecting. So what the problem is.
Can I interject for a moment there and just answer that question?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I think we need to have a water and wastewater master plan that might provide for a more accurate connection fee. So then we're not telling residents, oh, we got 5 million in savings, because those are not really savings. That's, you know, we're wrong because we didn't do our due diligence.
Okay, I'll go to staff as well, but again, just an explanation on the process here that happened during the Colgan development and will happen with the Everett development as well. You are right. The connection charges should be charged if in fact the municipality was going to build the plant. But we didn't build the plant. So connection charges are for existing infrastructure that is already built in the ground for a home to connect to. So when the developer decided to build their own wastewater treatment plant in Colgan, we do not need to charge a connection fee to it because they were putting the entire infrastructure in. They're putting the plant in, they were putting the sanitary sewer lines, and they were putting the outfall location in at their cost. And had the OLT, LPAT, OMB decisions resulted in the fact that we were assessed a share of that if we wanted to connect the existing community of Colgan on to that plant. So the plant was sized to accommodate the existing community of Colgan. The developer said, you know what, we're going to build the plant. We're not going to charge you for those residents that you eventually could hook up to on this plant, which would have been our share. And that's estimated to be 5 million. So it is a savings because we didn't have to turn money over to the developer to cover our share of a wastewater treatment plant, which if we're going to use the Everett numbers, could have been $45 million to build. So the developer paid $45 million to build their own plant, relieved us of our share, and there was no cost to the municipality for the construction of that plant. So there is a savings. Now it's estimated in the amount of 5 million. I can't tell you because Tribute has not released what they actually paid for or what they actually cost them to build that plant.
Yeah, respectfully, existing Colgan was never connected. And I think in the studies that were done there, because I read those too, there was supposed to be connections going from Kenansville down to that facility as well. And none of that happened.
But there's capacity in the system, and I might interject, and again, might go to Mr. Wergel and clarify a bit. There was capacity built within the system to accommodate future development or future connections of Colgan. So it didn't mean that they were going to connect Colgan immediately. It was the intention that there would be future capacity in the system. So Mr. Wergel, maybe if you'd like to clarify.
That's correct, Your Worship. We had actually, we reserved capacity within the plant. The plant was upsized to provide additional capacity to service our existing residents in Colgan.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Wergel. So I think what's happening is I'm asking a very specific question with regard to Colgan. When those 5 houses that came forward, and I asked the question, why can't we connect those houses to the existing wastewater facility? Why is it that we're told that there may not be capacity? So you're telling us 2 different things because, you know, you're saying there's capacity for all of Colgan, which is an additional 75, 80 houses. And then you're saying, and for Kenansville, which is another 50 houses. But then you're saying there's not capacity for 4 additional or 5 additional houses.
So again, I was at the meeting and I have to disagree because Mr. Thompson deliberately indicated that there was not a way to connect those 4 units because the development had not been fully built yet and the existing community of Colgan was not on the system. So he couldn't confirm if there was capacity for those because the capacity was saved for the existing community of Colgan. That's the interpretation that I got from Mr. Thompson.
So those 5 houses are right across the street on concession 8,
But they
on
were
the
not,
main pipe that goes through.
correct, but they were not,
that area.
they were not pre-existing the design of the subdivision plan.
So I think we need to do some more work as a municipality. I think we need to get a master plan underway for that, keeping in mind that Colgan and Everett are the 2 areas that we've identified for development, which we're going to be putting forward in the official plan. So if that's the case, we need to get the planning done appropriately. And I think we're behind the 8 ball on this.
Thank you. Actually, I just had one before I go to Councillor Mills, if I might. Councillor Simpson, you noted, just wanted to indicated that to the west of us, to the municipality, they were charging 100,000 for development charges. So, and then the one in the east was about the same, I believe you indicated?
No. I'm talking specifically about New Tecumseh.
Yes. So I believe you.
Sorry, I meant the east, not
So
the
the
west.
east.
East,
About 100,000.
west is mono.
So it was
I'm not connecting
So
mono.
about 100,000 for the east is what
For New Tecumseh. It's
So I just wanted to confirm that their township development charges as of January 1st, 2025 are $48,703.
cumulatively, they're collecting $100,000. And then the county portion is another 14,000.
They're accumulating.
I understand.
They're accumulating 86,000, almost 87,000, but that's inclusive of water connections.
Correct.
So if we included our water connections to our DCs, I do have that.
But we're not.
If we did, because that's how you compare apples to apples, we would be charging in Everett, for example, we'd be charging almost $35,000 in DCs compared to New Tecumseh's
90
to 86. So I just wanted to put it out there that they're not even close to 100,000 on a single and semi-detached dwelling. They're looking at $48,000 development charges. Councillor Knowles?
I just have a clarification on the statement, the CAO. Thank you. The nursing home, for clarification on the nursing home. The nursing home has always been in all the reports. Every report that came to council always included the nursing home. And correct me if I'm wrong, your worship, I believe it was 16 units that the nursing home was calculated at. Okay. When it came to council, it's also in the subdivision agreement. So if it's in the subdivision agreement, all the calculations are there and the build out is there for the nursing home. So I don't know why we don't have any statistics with regards to the water and wastewater because it's in the subdivision agreement. And I don't know the legalities if we turn around and cancel it now, because if we did the same thing with the subdivision, then we'd be in a bit of problems. One of the residents also asked us for an update on the debt loan of the water and wastewater, and why is the amount not in the report? How much is, I'd like to know how much the actual loan is currently.
Okay, so there's 2 questions there, and I'll just, and Mr. Wirgle could interject if he would like to. Mr. Wirgle indicated earlier in the meeting for the question with the nursing home that he couldn't find anything. He's certainly willing and able to find information further to that if you have questions, so please speak to him.
I would appreciate it.
And you could certainly speak to him. But it also indicated in his report that even in the event that that's not accounted for, when anyone was going to build such a facility, the facility would have to prove that there would be enough capacity for water and wastewater at the time of that. So there is a safeguard in regard to that. I can go to Mr. Enerchuk then for the debt load, but I do believe it was included in the report because it also included the wastewater rate study from 2024, which I believe did have at that time what our rough estimate of of debt was for the
Yeah,
facility.
do we have an actual though for the debt load for the water and wastewater in the township?
Through your worship to the councillor. So the internal loan we're speaking of.
That's correct.
It was about at the end of 2023, it was 4.2 million, the internal.
That was 2023. What about 2025? What is it now?
Oh, we haven't finalized the books yet for 2024.
We don't know. Yeah, okay. 5-6 million?
No, based on our initial year and results, I don't, we will not be adding to the internal loan for the end of 2024.
Okay, so roughly around the same then for, sorry, what was it for?
4.2 million.
And that was 2023?
That was the
end of 2023?
End of 2023.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. That's based on my understanding. Every year we're adding 500,000 to that internal loan, correct?
It's a question you're asking?
The internal loan that water and wastewater owes to the municipality, internal loan, which is 4.5 million in
2023 did not grow.
Increasing by 500,000 per year is what we were told in council 2023 budget.
Yes. And the treasurer just indicated that it did not grow in it's not projected to grow. It's not projected to grow in 2020.
Is water and wastewater self-sufficient suddenly?
Again, preliminary results. We're not forecasting any additional internal debt for wastewater. In water, give me a moment. Yeah, so again, preliminary results, the books aren't closed yet. We still have year-end adjustments that we typically do every year. Adjustments for accruals, wages, invoices that we're still receiving from Aqua. Just looking at the preliminary results, it looks like the internal loan or the shortfall in water, we're looking at, it looks like about $250,000.
We'll be adding 250,000 to the internal loan.
Preliminary results, yes. It's not a final number.
Went down.
Thank you. Any further questions on this item? Okay. I do have one comment, and it's actually, and forgive me if this was going to have draw any discussion, but there were a couple considerations that were listed in this report. And sorry, let me just find that item actually. Mr. Burgo, maybe you could help me with that. Yeah, is that the top page? Okay, thank you. So it is on page 5 of the report. And it indicates council may wish to consider adjusting the wastewater rate to apply to 85% of the total water consumed. And the 15% discount to wastewater would reflect seasonal usage for outside uses which do not affect the wastewater system. And it says this discount is applied to some municipalities such as Peel Region and the town of Shelburne. So I am aware that this does happen in a few municipalities, and I didn't know if council wanted to take any action on that. We have been very clear to the residents on the wastewater system that we are looking into the fees and charges for wastewater, and that we will be making adjustments. I think we are in a position that we could indicate early on here now that we would look at a 15 or 20% reduction on the wastewater charge to start, and then we can get additional data back in, because again, from Mr. Wirgel's report, it indicates that the consultant's recommending we do take additional time to make sure that we do have accurate data so that council and staff can make an informed decision. So I would be prepared to add an item on the agenda, on the resolution. I will put that on the floor, and potentially somebody might want to move that. So the recommendation would be that staff report IND 2025-005 dated February 12, 2025 regarding Colgan subdivision services review be received, and that staff be directed to prepare and present a bylaw at the March regular meeting to make the wastewater meter rate apply to 80% of the total water meter consumption, representing a 20% reduction in wastewater bills. So I would suggest that as a motion. I have Deputy Mayor Locks moving that and Councillor Cox seconded. Is there any questions or concerns on the motion there on the floor? Councillor Meadows.
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment to that we, because Tribute is supposed to be paying 100% of the wastewater at this time, to refund the residents of Colgan 100% for what they've paid out in wastewater treatment right at the moment, because it was since we pulled the hold off, it was supposed to be the developer that was supposed to be paying for the water and wastewater. So I'd like to make that amend that into the motion as well.
Okay, so you're asking for Tribute to refund residents 100% for the.
No, I'm actually asking for the township to refund them 100% for what we charged them, because we're not supposed to be charging them for wastewater, because why are we collecting it? Tribute's supposed to be paying for it.
Okay, well, Mr. Wirgel already answered that question because it's accounted for in our bylaw to charge for.
Well, then we should have changed our bylaw, and this should be an amendment to our bylaw until that plant is up and operational. I think it goes against our bylaw to charge somebody for something that they're not getting. So anyways, that's you can do what you want with it. I'm just putting that on the floor, that as far as I'm concerned, they should get 100% rebate until the plant's up and operational.
Okay, so you're moving that. Do I have a seconder for that motion? All right, I have Councillor Simpson. So a couple questions, and then I'll go to Mr. Wirgel as well, just for clarification purposes. But I understand correctly that the plant was operational since October, and so there was a short time frame from when the developer was actually removing the sludge material from the holding tanks and disposing off site. But if I recall correctly, the plant was actually partially being operated through the entire time, because there was still effluent being processed through the trains in the plant and held in the towers and at the plant itself. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but could we just get a bit of clarification as to?
Correct. The plant did full treatment of the effluent, the wastewater. The only thing that they didn't do was discharge to the body of water that it was supposed to discharge to. So it had fully treated all of the effluent. It took the effluent that was treated, it stored it, and instead of discharging it to the creek, where it was designed to discharge to, they didn't discharge to that point. They brought it to a different disposal site.
So the plant was partially operated during the entire time that we were charging residents for wastewater.
Yeah, right. Sorry, and then the date was October 18th, 2024, that the plant became fully operational.
Okay. All right, so I've got a couple of hands here. Deputy Mayor Locks, Councilor O'Leary, Councilor Simpson.
Just through the chair. So my understanding was that they were getting charged the normal wastewater rate, and Tribute was paying for the extra fact of having to haul it away, as opposed to the residents getting charged. Is that correct?
Through your worship, the Tribute was operating the plant. Plus, as you said, it had the extra costs of discharging or hauling away the effluent.
That's part of, in this report where it states that the residents weren't being charged that extra. It was Tribute that was paying for that part of the process, even though the plant was, say, from 50% to 100% running. The actual residents weren't getting paid for the affluent to be taken away.
Tribute was paying the cost to haul them,
it wasn't
the effluent away.
That part wasn't put on the residents.
No.
Just wanted that to be clarified. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to just pass the chair to you for a few moments. That's the speaking order. You've already spoke, so.
Councilor O'Leary.
To the chair. When people keep saying they just hauled it away and dumped it, anybody with any knowledge of sewage, it has to be processed. It has to be completely processed, whether they hauled it away partially processed or completely processed, it still has to be verified. So, like, as far as I'm concerned, the residents got what they were paying for. They got water in, water out. I go, there's no need to be giving credits for this and that. Like Tribute Homes didn't just take it and dump it in somebody's field. Like, it went into another sewage treatment plant. Either it went to Toronto or it went to Newmarket or it went somewhere. It was dumped in the sewage treatment plant there and run through the processor. Anyways, that's my comment.
Thank you. Councilor Simpson.
To the chair, and perhaps staff can give some guidance on this. From the amounts that we've collected from residents in Colgan, does Tribute get any portion of that money?
Perhaps the treasurer could speak to that.
Yes, through the chair to the councillor. So with the current arrangement, Tribute is responsible for the operating cost, and we will be sharing up to, I believe it's $550,000 of our revenue with them to offset the costs that they're incurring. And that's embedded in the subdivision agreement that we do this.
So if I understand this correctly.
Supplemental?
Sure, supplemental. If I understand this correctly, Tribute is paying the costs and we have to provide them with up to 500,000. Is that correct?
Up to $550,000. Correct.
For the operation of the facility for that period of time. Or what is that period of time?
The revenue sharing is for the maintenance period, which I believe is 2 years. And Eric can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that I believe it's the maintenance period starts when the plant became.
So the maintenance period would start with sorry, through your chair. The maintenance period would start and run, I believe it runs for 2 years.
So is it 550,000 per annum or is it 550,000 for that 2-year period?
It's annually or would be prorated if it's for only part of the year.
How much would we have collected per annum at this point? Or in the last year, how much have we collected on that one system?
I would have to get back to you. I don't have those numbers.
Would it be in excess of 550,000?
Councillor Cox?
As of the end of through the chair to the councillor, as of the end of the year, again, preliminary results, we've collected for all systems. I don't have to break down to the revenue, but for all wastewater systems, we've collected $464,000 in sewer revenue.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to add, we treat the sewer is one system, one budget. We still need to put money into a sewer reserve that has no money in it. We still need to repay back the internal loan.
Thank you, Mr. Andrechuk. Councillor Cox?
Just hold on, through the chair to confirm, are we still talking about the amendment? Okay, like, because can I like move to amend to defer this so the applicable parties can get their questions into staff so they give them adequate time to provide adequate answers? Because right now it's like you're up against a firing squad and we're sitting here waiting on people to calculate numbers on the spot. I don't think it's fair to anybody, and I think that we should be a little bit more professional and say, you know what, that was just part of our training that we've been, we obviously need more answers. We can't just start and say, hey, let's give them all their money back. Let's do all this. We should get all the answers, put them up front, email your questions in, and stop sitting around here going back and forth.
Thank you. I'm going to pass the chair back to the mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Appreciate that. So there is amendment on the floor, moved by Councillor Meadows and seconded by Councillor Simpson. Any further questions to that amendment? Okay. I'm prepared to call a question on the amendment then. All those in favor of the amendment? It's defeated.
Can I have a recorded vote on that?
Certainly. Certainly. The amendment was to reimburse residents, I believe it just distinctly said Colgan, residents of Colgan, for wastewater. Madam Clerk, recorded vote by Councillor Meadows.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Council, we are taking a recorded vote on the amendment, starting with Councillor Meadows as you requested the vote. In favor or against?
In favor.
Councillor Borzos, in favor or against?
Against.
Councillor Cox, in favor or against?
Against.
Councillor O'Leary, in favor or against?
Against.
Councillor Simpson, in favor or against?
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Laux, in favor or against?
Against.
And Mayor Anderson, in favor or against?
Against?
That's 2 in favor, 5 against.
Okay, the motion is defeated, 5-2. Another 2-5. Okay, so we're back to the main motion then. Any further questions on receiving the item and having a draft budget come to council for the March meeting to reduce water consumption, wastewater bills 20%? So that's main motion. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Laux, seconded by Councillor Cox. Any further questions on that main motion? Councillor Cox?
Can I now amend that motion? Move to amend it to defer back to staff, refer back to staff in order to grab more information as to financials, quantities, because right now I find that there's just arbitrary numbers out there.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion if that's the case. You're moving to refer the
refer back to staff, yes.
I'll second.
Okay. So I just wanted to comment on that before we take a vote on that. The reason for the recommendation coming to this meeting and into March is we will miss an entire billing cycle. So any decision that we do make will be 4 months down the road and not take into an April billing cycle. So no change to water bill would happen until June. So just that's why staff actually, that's why I grabbed that recommendation out of the report, because staff had recommended that 80%, the 15% reduction would be available at the moment. Anyways, that's just.
Then I recall my motion.
You're going to
withdraw.
No.
Okay, so you're going to withdraw. You're going to
give him a break and then come back.
Okay, so you're going to withdraw the motion, Councillor Cox? Okay. Councillor O'Leary?
Like, I don't understand, through the chair, sorry. I don't understand the mentality of giving them a break and then doing further investigation and coming back and give them a raise, because like, we don't know where it is, right? We don't know what the rate's gonna be. So why would we give them a discount? Then once they've got the discount, they're going, oh, thank you. Then come back and raise it back up because of the cost. I mean, we're doing things backwards. Let's take the 2 months. It's not going to kill them. Let's take the 2 months, do our investigations, and come through with something that's firm. Like, I don't understand this. Anyways, that's my opinion.
I certainly agree on the information aspect, and I know Deputy Mayor can comment. The concern for me is the consultant has recommended in this report through Mr. Wergel that he would recommend to us that we have clear data, and that data may take another year for us to compile. So we wouldn't be making any decision on a wastewater or water rates for a full year until we can actually, until we get that. So the concern would be is how long do we wait? What information do we need to have? We are kind of recognizing that other municipalities do the same thing, and they don't seem to have an issue with charging a lesser rate for wastewater, because not all of it is going into the wastewater treatment plant. Some of it's going through other disposable other means. Deputy Mayor Laux.
Just through your worship, just clarification. We're waiting on numbers on how much is still owing on the internal debt, this, that, and the other. These have nothing to do with giving the residents there a 15% break on their wastewater rate until we compile enough data to understand what's going on. From what I understand, all the numbers and what we're looking for is like, how much is the debt? How much are we bringing in? What are the numbers going to be for the end of 2024? That's not going to change anything to do with giving the people, the residents, a 15% or 20% break or whatever it is right now, because that's what they're asking for. So I believe we should go ahead, do that. And then the data is going to come in over the next year. We're going to be able to figure out a lot more on what's going on. And obviously in the next meeting or two, we're going to have more set numbers on the numbers that were asked for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor O'Leary.
Through the chair, my concern is that this is only a 2-month delay until we get our internal numbers together. I suggest that we postpone this for the 2 months, get our internal numbers together, then proceed from there. Because it only makes sense. We then have more knowledge, we have a greater understanding, and like, we're throwing around 15%, 20% discount. Where's that number come from? Like, here it is, 25%, you know, like, really, like, you know, it is. It's like you're grabbing it out of the air. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's premature. I think we should wait a couple of weeks, give our financial department a chance to get all the numbers and everything all together, get his ducks in order, and then we make a decision.
Okay, thank you, Councilor O'Leary. Councilor Borzos.
Just through the chair to Councilor O'Leary and the rest of the council. I've been mulling this over in my head, and I think this 20% decrease is quite reasonable. I think unless we are able to actually supply every resident with a meter to physically and actually measure the amount of wastewater that goes out of that house, I think it's a really fair and reasonable assumption that 20% of the water used through the system will go to irrigation, will go to other uses, for example, washing cars, whatever, but it will not end up in the sewer system. Therefore, it will not be processed by the system and so on. I mean, we can continue with the logic, but at the end of the day, I think 20% is not like we are cutting it in half. And there is business case out there. As the chair suggested, there are other municipalities that are using the same formula. So I think it's a fully reasonable assumption and a fully reasonable, call it interim solution for the next year or so. So I would fully support that.
Any further questions on the main motion? Okay, seeing none. So we do have the motion. Everybody's clear with the motion? Do you want to read it, please, Madam Clerk?
Through your worship to council, the current motion that is on the floor reads as follow, that staff report IND 2025-05 dated February 12, 2025 regarding Colgan subdivision services review be received, and that staff be directed to prepare and present a bylaw at the March regular council meeting to make the wastewater meter rate apply to 80% of the total water meter consumption, representing a 20% reduction in the wastewater bills.
So that's the question, Councilor Borzos.
One quick clarification, since we're talking about the Colgan subdivision specifically here, will this only apply to the Colgan subdivision specifically, or all the users on the system?
All wastewater users.
Thank you.
Clarification.
Is Councilor Meadows?
I'm sorry, but this motion that you're putting to give a 15%,
20%,
sorry, 20% reduction, which I agree with. I think the residents deserve the 20%, but we have to rescind the current bylaw to put that in. So we would have to put a motion forward to rescind the wastewater treatment bylaw right now to put that in.
Yes, you are correct. We do have to make adjustments to our bylaw, but so the motion reads that staff would prepare a draft bylaw for the March council meeting for adoption of council at that time to make the necessary changes to the wastewater rate.
But this was a staff report coming forward, and now you're giving a reduction. I don't think that's germane to the particular motion that was there. I'd like clarification from the clerk if I could.
Well, if I might before, because I'll just provide my clarification. I can certainly go to the clerk, but Mr. Wergel report indicates your council may wish to consider adjusting the wastewater rate to apply to 85% of the total water consumed. The 15% discount to wastewater would reflect seasonal usage for outside uses which do not affect the wastewater system.
Well, if that's the case, then that should have been inside the motion that was brought forward to council, and it's not inside the motion brought to council. It just says that staff report ID 2025-005 dated February 12th, 2025 regarding Colgan subdivision service review be received. It doesn't say anything about rescinding the bylaw, which, like I said, I'm in favor for, but this is not germane to what's here in the recommendation. The recommendation from staff, if it was to drop 20%, should have been written in the recommendations and brought forward to council, but it wasn't there. So that's all I'm saying. It's not germane to what's here on the report, and it doesn't follow policy.
Okay, I'll go to the clerk for comment as well on this.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Meadows. As staff did provide within the body of the report a recommendation that they would consider or recommend to council reducing the wastewater billing rate, it would be germane to the motion on the floor. It would be similar to a situation where staff would outline options for council's consideration within a report, and council would choose an option within the report to proceed with. As this information was presented to council and is based on a staff recommendation, it would be germane to the motion at this time.
Thank you. Okay. And I might add, to be honest here, I'm looking at all the considerations. We could probably even amend the motion to read that all considerations be adopted because they are all providing additional information to council at a later time. So I think the considerations that are put in the report for council for the future is to make sure that we are following along here and that staff are following along, that there is data collection, that there is information coming back to council, that there is monitoring of the entire situation for wastewater plants. All right, so the main motion as is, all prepared to call the question.
I'd like a recorded vote on this, please.
Okay. Madam Clerk, Councillor Metals has requested to record a vote.
Thank you, Worship. Through to Council, we are taking the recorded vote on the main motion, starting with Councillor Meadows as you called for the vote, in favor or against.
I'm against.
Councillor Borzos, in favor or against.
In favor.
Councillor Cox, in favor or against.
In favor.
Councillor O'Leary, in favor or against.
Against.
Councillor Simpson, in favor or against. Deputy Mayor Laux, in favor or against.
In favor.
And Mayor Anderson, in favor or against.
In favor.
That's 4 in favor, 3 against.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-3. And I'll just advise council again that that's only providing direction to staff to bring a bylaw to the March meeting. So we would still have to take a vote on the bylaw as to following through with that information. Okay, it is 9:58 p.m. So I do need a motion from members of council. I have a move by Deputy Mayor Laux, second by Councillor Borzos, that the meeting continue past the hour of 10 p.m. Any questions on the main motion? All those in favor? And that is carried. All right, so we're on item 13.2, which is staff report PLA 2025-005 official plan status update. I don't know if there's any questions or comments that would change the outcome of receiving this, but just for clarification purposes, I believe Councillor Borzos, Councillor Simpson, and Councillor Metals all had questions with regards to this item. So Councillor Borzos, you were the one that pulled this.
Yeah, so I will be probably a lot shorter than my previous colleagues here. My only, I guess, question, I'm looking for some clarification from staff through the chair. In the report section that reads key focus areas, item number 1, settlement area. And there are just bullet points here, but the 4th bullet point talks about the OLT decision that approved 1,321 dwellings units for the far side subdivision and 439 units for the R&M homes, totaling 1,760 units in Everett. I am not sure if these are the final and correct numbers. If they are, I applaud them. But I believe that the R&M number is incorrect, and it is not 439 homes, but in fact it's 667 or so. So I would just like to ask for
660, I think, in that.
Yeah, something.
But,
Like that.
Mr. Sally, just to comment on the numbers in the report.
So, Chair, to Councillor Borzos, we will review the OMB decision that I referred to. That was OMB decision 2008. So according to that, the numbers are 439. So I will look into the latest one and revise the numbers.
Yes, please. Thank you. And then just one more quick item, if I may. The last sort of following bullet point is regarding strategic and measured approach, considering to defer expansion decision until the official or next official plan review can take place in 5 years in Everett. I would strongly encourage us as council to put the brakes on the expansion of Everett. I think we already have a lot of homes on our hands with 2,000 units coming online. I don't think we need to proceed faster and without any caution to further expand the settlement area to the west with tens of thousands of new homes. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Simpson.
To the chair, I wanted to note that at the last council meeting when we had our consultant here, and he noted certain things about the subdivision. He noted that there was a study that was done in 2013, and that everything that we would be proceeding in accordance with a study from 2013 for this subdivision. I would like to note that it's important for council to understand that when that proposal came forward in 2013, that subdivision and the proposal for the subdivision was substantially different from what that subdivision is today. We also didn't have pressures on the west, right? So those pressures that we're seeing from the west to expand the subdivision or the settlement area to include that area is a pressing concern. The substantial change that we've seen in the subdivision was only approved in last summer. I think it's important for council to review those studies that were done in 2013 to make sure that they are updated. And, you know, I think it's important that we have adequate studies for any subdivision that comes forward. If we walk into something without knowing what's happening, without understanding all the pressures that the municipality is facing, I don't think we're going to make the right decisions. And especially with regard to that study, which showed an outflow location. And now we know that we need that subdivision, once it comes in, that outflow location will no longer be feasible if there's any additional development in Everett. So that's, you know, increasing the cost to the municipality. And I think I would like to put forward a motion that, you know, that we add that a report come forward to council on additional studies and reports on that subdivision. So I hope council can proceed with that. Thank you.
Okay, any other, sorry, Councillor Meadows, you're next on the list.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask staff for a bit of an update when we're gonna see something on the, that's all I was gonna ask. I wasn't gonna get into all the specifics. I just wanted to know when we're gonna see the final possible official plan.
The timeline calls for the end of the year for a final one, but there would be another iteration that would be coming out to council and to the public at some point. So Mr. Sally, comment on that?
Through Chair to Councillor Meadows, we have provided a complete table of different stages. Like the next draft we will be seeing in like second quarter, and with the schedules as well, not just the draft text.
Right.
And it will be followed by public meeting, and the next stages would be finalizing the official plan, council adoption, and county's package. So that whole process would be around a year, like at end of 2025.
End of 2025.
For the whole process. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I've seen dates before. I'm just asking, you know, I've seen reports like this before, and I'm waiting 3 terms of council, so I'm kind of edgy on getting this official plan done. So, like, you know, like.
Well, I think we all are, Councillor Meadows. We were at the county yesterday, in fact, and Severn or the county just approved Severn's, and that was 15 years in the making. So we're probably one of the longer ones out there, but the comments been made at the county level consistently is there's been so many changes to the planning legislation that every time we think we've got it nailed down, something changes, and then we're making a shift, and new legislation is taking us in a different direction. So the intention is to make sure that we have a comprehensive official plan that captures everything at the time and date of passing, and not just, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Something. So it is unfortunate it's taken some time. I do want to just comment on myself on the timelines. You know, I would caution that we do want to move as quickly as possible on it, but we also want to be engaging with the public. It's been some time since we had a public meeting. I believe it was probably 8 years ago when we had a public meeting on the official plan. And I know that's proposed. It doesn't hurt to do 2. And I think the options of, and I've said this before at council, that I personally won't call a public meeting in the months of summer. I don't think it's right. So if we miss a window, then we would be pushing it back a couple months to potentially go to September, and then that would delay potentially things going to the county until next year. But again, staff are working diligently on this, and if we can speed things up, we will. And if we have to take a bit of time to make sure that we get all the commenting in from the public and all our agencies to make sure that we are actually approving something that we can stand behind. because this official plan would be reviewed every 5 years. But if we end up in a situation again, then we potentially could have an official plan for another 15 years that we want to make sure that's going to cover some of that time. Councillor O'Leary?
Through the chair, I'm in agreement that we need to have further studies done on the sewage treatment plant, because we're not going to stand in the way of progress. We've already had a presentation from another corporation that wants to develop the west half of on the west half of the 13th. Therefore, if we build a sewage treatment plant on the east half, and it will only handle, the outfall will only handle the capacity of the east half, are we going to have to build another sewage treatment plant for the west half? I think we need to have a study done to see what we can do. We need an alternate plan, because we already have people who have approached us to do this. And I don't think, I don't think we should jump feet first into something. I think, you know what? Kind of just slowly move into these things. Just because it's coming up by the end of the year doesn't mean we have to do it. I mean, they don't do anything until they're ready. Now, we should be on the same page. We do it when we're ready, when we have all the information that we need. Whether we can do the outfall to the Boyne versus to the Pine, that makes a major difference, because my understanding, and we need a commitment from them that they are going to put a modular sewage system in so that we can expand on it. We don't want something like we've ended up here with Tribute in Colgan. It's not a modular system. We can't expand to it. So it's going to cost us down the road. It's going to cost us major money down the road. Modular systems, they can go so far, but they could save us, like we wouldn't have to do anything for 20 years or 30 years maybe. Something like that. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on the update? All right, so there is a, sorry, Councillor Borzos.
Thank you. Through the chair, I would just like to ask that, if possible, if we could get some copies or draft copies of the OP as it progresses in its creation, because I think, after all, if we are the guardians of the interest of all the taxpayers and all the people who put us here, I think the best service we could do is if we follow the OP development and not just get a copy at the very end and say, okay, well, you guys going to vote on this one. I'd like to be able to influence it as much as possible and as much as procedure allows me to do so. But to do that, I need copies. I need to see it. So that would be my request. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will comment that we've received 2 iterations already as council for the OP for commenting. And if I understand the report correctly, the next iteration will have all the schedules, which is what we were supposed to have a year ago. So reviewing those schedules will be helpful for council as well, because it will add a bit more texture to the actual OP document itself. Councillor Simpson?
Through the chair, just in addition to that timeline that we mentioned about the OPs, could we also get a timeline with regard to studies that are underway that will help or assist the OP? So master plans and everything else that are in progress, and that will inform the DC rate as well. So when we're doing the DC, when we're doing the OP, and how those timelines are important. One of the things, especially as we were talking today, we found that, you know, the DC bylaw, the previous one in 2021, came right a month after the subdivision agreement was signed, so that we don't have any issues like that pop up later on. I'd hate for Tribute or any potential developer to be paying $6,000 per home. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think staff are cognizant of the fact that there will be updates on that. You know, and you touched on the subject of DCs. The concern there again is we have to be cognizant with our DCs because our current DC bylaw is actually under appeal. And if we lose that appeal, then we would actually have to refund everyone who's been charged a new DC rate from 2021 to 2024. So we got to be those reports have to be diligent and defending what we do charge in our DC bylaw so that we don't end up in any WALT or planning tribunals. So just, I think. Yes, well, we've had multiple studies, and I think the OP will have won't be too many studies, technical studies based on other than the schedules that will be updated. So, all right. Any further questions or comments? Okay, so the recommendation is that staff report PLA 2025-005 dated February 12th, 2025 regarding official plan status update be received. And do I have a move for that? I have Councillor Cox and a seconder, please. Councillor Borzos. There was no second part. Okay, all those in favor of the motion? And that is carried. All right, so we're on to item 16, which is bylaws. Madam Clerk, just a matter of procedure. What are we doing with 16.1?
Because council did refer the adjacent staff report back to staff and did not provide authority to proceed with the subdivision agreement, we can bypass this report and it'll be, or this bylaw, and it'll be brought forward at a future time with the report.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're on to 16.2. Library services agreement with the ESSA Public Library. Do you have sorry, I'll read the motion first. The bylaw 2025-011 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a library services agreement with the ESSA Public Library Board be enacted. Mover, please. Councillor Cox, second by Councillor Meadows. Any questions on the agreement with ESSA Public Library? All those in favor? That is carried. 16.3 is the 2025 interim tax levying bylaw. Recommendation is that a bylaw 2025-012 being a bylaw to enable the township to bill and collect the 2025 interim tax levy be enacted. A mover, please. Councillor Cox, seconded by Councillor O'Leary. And I guess staff, you have your hands full trying to get those out before the deadline of the end of February for payment. All those in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Item 17, there were no notices of motion provided prior to the agenda. Are there any notices of motions that council would like to bring forward? Councillor Meadows?
Yeah, that staff bring forward a report on the new master service development. Everett, focusing on water and wastewater.
Sorry, can you read that one more time for me?
That staff bring forward a master service Everett development. Water and wastewater delivery for.
Okay, thank you. You provide that information to the clerk? Okay, thank you. All right, so that item will be discussed at the next council meeting. Any other notices of motion? Seeing none, there's no items of new business this evening, and we're on to the confirmation bylaw 19. It's the bylaw 2025-013 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the Township of Adjala-Tosorontio at its regular council meeting held on February 12, 2025 be enacted. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Laux, and seconded by Councillor Cox. All those in favor? And that is carried. And we are adjourned